And now I'm trying, they've already happened, and I'm trying to use that past information to predict the future, or I'm trying to predict something in the future leading that will help me. Sometimes people say lagging indicators are just that. It's a rear view mirror. Okay. I want to look ahead. And sometimes lagging indicators will allow you to project ahead. We saw that with earned value management. I looked at my performance the last 8 months, and from that information, I used it to predict my future, or predict my performance in the future. Sometimes that doesn't work. Here's an acronym that talks about measuring. You want to measure, you want to be specific, you want to find something that is measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. So you're looking for things like this in your project that you can use to then estimate your performance. I want to track progress, support decisions. I want to communicate it, whether I use a burn down chart. Remember velocity? What did velocity mean again? You remember that term?
Velocity is basically the efficiency of the team, how fast they can work.
Right. Or another way to say it is how many story points they can accomplish per sprint. And that's good for planning, because once again, as a product owner, I know how many story points my team can do per sprint. So during that sprint planning meeting, I can help facilitate them to choose the right amount. They don't choose too little, and they don't choose too much. Here's that burn down chart again, and I can plot the plan versus the actual. And again, it looks, just from looking at this one, don't look like I'm knocking out as much work as I had planned to. Ideal line could also be called the plan. And I agree, I'm behind schedule. I'm not knocking out as much as I thought I could. I'd be ahead of schedule if I was below that line. That tells me that it doesn't look like I'm going to finish this project on time. A drop in my chart could indicate a number of things. I would hope it would indicate that we did a lot of work. Could also mean we eliminated work. It's something you want to look at. If suddenly my performance drops down, meaning I knocked out a whole bunch of stories. Wow, this is great. Boy, you guys really worked great this week. That could be the reason, and I hope it is. It could also mean that I took my project was 120 story points, and I deleted some user stories, and now my project's only 100 story points. So it gives the false indication that I made a lot of progress. This is going back to, this is a burn up chart where I started, the green line, I start at 0 and move up. Velocity, this is something that takes me a few iterations. So for me to determine how many story points my team's can do, it may take me a couple iterations to figure it out. And I need to average across those. One iteration, they knock out 20. Another iteration, they knock out 10. Next one, they knock out 12. I'll average those out to get an average velocity. And I can't do it with just 2 iterations. Oh, here you go. This is what, this tells me what I completed here. And then there you go. I take a look at what I completed, average it out, and then this helps me plan. You can see the lines I have in planning are much higher. So I've been assigning too much work to my team. They can only do 12. Okay. So when I assigned in iteration 10, what is that, about 17? There's no way they're going to get that done. So now that tells me as a product owner for iteration number 5, I'm looking for 12 story points. Okay. I'm not going to let them pick too many or too little. I got to get right around 12. That's their capability. And again, this can also allow me to predict the future too. In this example here, they're saying that there's 60 story points remaining in my project. I know they can knock 12 out per iteration. So it's going to take 5 more sprints to complete this project. That's my estimate. If the boss asks me, how much longer is it going to take you to finish this thing? The throughput is the number of units. One of the concepts of sprint that sometimes is different for predictive folks is, in predictive project management, if I'm halfway done with a work package, I'll tell you I'm 50% done. Agile, your user story is either done or it's not. There's no in between those. You either are done or you're not done. I don't want to hear about 50%. Okay. So that's a different concept. Where in predictive project management, I'll tell you 50%. Here's some other terms: cycle time and lead time. Lead time is the time it takes from when you identified the work, like a work request, I developed the user story, until I finish the work. So that includes writing up the user story, getting all the material in place, getting all the workers out to the job site, whatever it may be, and then starting the work and finishing the work. So lead time's the whole thing. Cycle time is just me working. So you can see the difference of these. Cycle time is from the time I pick up the wrench until I finish working. Lead time is all the stuff I got to do beforehand. So everything from the day I write the user story till the day I finish the work is lead time. So a couple new definitions there. Control charts, lead time, in cycle time. These may tell me, by looking at these lead times and cycle times, it may tell me where I might have a problem. If my wait time is what's taking me so long, I may have a problem in my supply department. I'm waiting on the lumber to arrive and it's taken forever. And thus it's taken me longer to do this work because the supply department is so slow. Here's a cumulative chart. I think this will build on itself too. And it didn't. Come on. This is where I have work and I know all the work I need to do. I may show you what I'm doing, very similar to that concept of work in progress. And then I also have done. They also call this a a Sandflow chart. You ever see those where it's a chart that has all the work, and then the work I'm doing changes color to another color. And then once it's done, it changes to another color. And ideally, the color will change, in this case, from orange, because orange is everything I need to do. Eventually, this graph will become green at the end of the project. Everything will be done. Information radiators. This is a term, an information radiator, and this is a video I'll play, but the definition of an information radiator is something that I can post, hang on the wall in a common area. An information radiator will also brief itself. So I could hang something in the hallway, and anybody walking down that hallway could look at this chart and understand where my project is, the progress, where we are. I may hang a Gantt chart, and a Gantt chart has that arrow of this is today. And you can look at it and you can say, okay, that's the work they finished. This is the work they're doing today. And this is the work they haven't started yet because they're going to do it next month. And you got a pretty good idea of where my project is right now. No one needs to be standing there explaining the chart to you. You can understand it yourself. That's an information radiator. Let's watch the video now.
90% of all the information transmitted to the brain is visual. Not surprisingly, visuals are processed 60,000 times faster than text. We are wired to automatically interpret patterns for instant comprehension with almost zero effort. Want to see some examples? What do you see right away? A different shape. And with this one, a different size. And with this one, a different color. That brings us to an information radiator. An information radiator is a type of visual control that displays project information in a place where passersby can see it and get information without having to ask questions. The far left column of this example starts with the project charter. This lists the project's primary objectives, key features, and cautions and risks. It also lists those who have key roles in the project's completion: the product owner, the architecture owners, and the team lead. Finally, it provides a glossary of project terms which may not be widely known. The next column of this example indicates any impediments and blockers that are slowing or preventing progress on the project. This includes both known and outstanding blockers, and those that have been mitigated or completed. The bottom of this column provides a convenient place for the color coding to reside. In this case, green for done, blue for started, red for blockers, and yellow for dependencies. The large center section of this example shows the product backlog. It also shows the iteration backlog, the specific tasks being worked on by members of the team in the current iteration. The far right section of this example shows the iteration burndown, the rate at which the team is burning through its customer stories. This can tell the team whether they are on track, ahead, or behind the committed work. It also shows the release burnup. This monitors progress of release commitment iteration by iteration and gives the team a projection of when they will meet their release goal. And finally, it shows working agreements. These agreements detail how the team will work together and what they can expect of each other. Of course, this is just an example. Your information radiator should be customized to meet the needs of your team.
That's an information radiator. All right, another matching quiz here. Let's see what this is. All right, a lot of them here. Lagging indicator.
Measures activity or other factors that have occurred in the past.
Yes, absolutely. A leading indicator.
Calculating the productivity for a team is but one example.
Burn down chart.
Measures the amount of work completed.
I think
Or it
it's
could be highlights how much work is highlights how much work is left to compete or to complete in a sprint or release. I mean, what's the
hang on a second. A burn down, I had measures how much is, I thought it was how much work is left to complete. So I started at 120, and now I did one iteration and knocked out 20 story points. I have 100 left to do.
so then the opposite, the burn up
Yeah.
is going to be the measure
The
of
burn up
work completed.
is the amount of work completed, because an iteration passes and I knocked out 20. Iteration 2, I knocked out 40. And that's how much I'm doing. Eventually I'll get to 120 and be done with this project. But I'm not there yet. How about cycle time?
Cycle time would be the task,
Right.
and
That's
then lead
the-
time's the process.
Yeah, lead time's the whole thing. So cycle time is just the physical work I'm doing. Lead time's the whole thing, from writing the work request or the user story to getting the material to doing the work, the whole thing. We did this already. Let me get back to back to my slides here. All right, now we're going to talk about uncertainty. We said the word uncertainty meant risk. Hopefully this will be a review. Conditions that lead to uncertainty, the project itself could be risky, the organization, their involvement with stakeholders may cause risk, political, economical, social, legal, environmental factors. Working in the shipyard, we were very concerned with environmental factors because we work with a lot of things that were very dangerous and you couldn't just dump them down a drain. And so environmental was a big thing. Other things that could cause risk or uncertainty is ambiguity. I don't know how to do this work. We've never done this before. Complexity, this stuff is difficult. A lot of changes, any of that could cause risk. Number of people involved, it makes it more complicated. More deliverables, the novelty of it, multiple interdependencies across other systems, the laws, the regulations. Things change. That could cause it. So again, ambiguity is uncertainty. Progressive elaboration, that's a term. We heard it on an earlier slide called rolling wave planning. And what that means is I'm going to plan in steps up front. Maybe let's say I have a 12-month project. Month 1 through 3, I'm going to plan in great detail. Month 4 through 6, little less detail, more general planning. And then months 6 through 12 is kind of just a concept. And as I get deeper into my project, I will refine the level of detail in my planning. And that's called rolling wave planning. Another term which means the same thing is progressive elaboration. They mean the same thing. Okay. Experiments I could do. Experiments, remember what are experiments where I try something to see if it works? What's that called in Agile? Agile don't call those experiments. What do they call them? Do you remember? Where I try something in the middle of a sprint just to see if it works. Maybe it will.
I remember talking about it. I don't remember the word.
They call it a spike.
Yeah.
Where I kind of go off in another direction just for a quick period of time. I'm not working a user story right now. Okay, I'm just trying something on my own to see if it works. That's a spike. Okay, and that's okay. And then we talked about prototypes, strategies dealing with complexity, decoupling, simulation, diversity, balance, iteration, just making it easier or breaking it up, breaking the work up. Dealing with volatility, alternative analysis, reserves. I hate when they say that I have a cost and a schedule reserve. I don't necessarily have a schedule reserve that you can put your hands on. I have those 2 cost reserves. Remember, management reserve and contingency reserve. Those are pots of money that I have. And the reason I don't have a schedule reserve is I can buy time. If I have money, we can work second shift. We can work overtime. I can bring in more workers. So I can buy time. That's why I don't necessarily have a schedule reserve. I have money. And I'll even do that in my budget. When I built a budget, I would have straight time and then overtime in my budget. I may use the overtime, I may not. But it gave me some money to work overtime. If I didn't use that, then, that may turn out to be profit if I don't need it. But that's how I had a schedule reserve. It was just money. We talked about these yesterday. Strategies for opportunities. Do you remember these? And then strategies for risk or threats. These are great exam questions where they'll give you a little scenario and then ask you what strategy are you using in this example. I want to have a steady rhythm for risks, and you saw that in a quiz question. You know, how often do I look at risks? Well, it's proactively throughout the entire project. And I would bring this up every single week. Are there any risks that are new? Are there any risks that we can retire? Daily stand-ups, it may come up because a risk could be a blocker. I'm incrementally delivering things which may identify that, and then I got a cadence. There's that word at the end. Proof of concept experiments or spikes is what the Agile folks call it. Tracking progress to manage risk. I'm always looking for those roadblocks because I'm a servant leader. Agile is adaptive. That's another word for Agile. So I should be able to adapt as uncertainty comes up. I'm going to track impediments. Impediments are another word for issues or blockers. If I have them, ideally, I'd be able to solve them right then and there. If not, I may have to record them like this and to determine how severe they are, how quickly I want to resolve them. Again, if I can't fix them right away. We talked about qualitative risk analysis, and that's what they're talking about here, qualitative risk analysis. This is where I determine the impact and probability. Because think of it, if I'm identifying risks and my team comes up with 100 risks, that's fantastic. So I list 100 risks on my risk register. Do I really want to do all the work of quantitative analysis, developing a strategy for 100 different risks? No, that's way too much work. So let's prioritize these risks, determine which ones have the greatest probability of actually happening and the greatest impact if they do. Okay, and that's what I'm doing here, or on the last slide. And that's qualitative analysis. I put the risks in priority order. And so out of the 100 that they identified, maybe the top 10 have the highest probability and the highest impact. And I may multiply those two numbers together just to get a figure to prioritize them. And then let's say 10 are really right at the top. Those 10, then I'll do quantitative analysis where I put a cost figure on them and then develop a strategy for those. I'll put the time into those. Let's see what this is. Okay, good. These are some strategies here that we talked about. Avoidance.
Not using certain developmental practices that may create potential security risks or other potential issues.
Perfect. Remember, avoidance means eliminate the risk. That risk no longer exists. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to use those practices that you told me were risky. We just won't use them. But this one, transfer.
Purchasing cybersecurity insurance.
Yeah, purchasing insurance, where I pass that risk on to the insurance company there. Mitigate.
Using agile development methodologies to regularly assess and reduce risks.
Yep, I reduce the risk. Acceptance.
Understand the certain risks may be inherent to the project.
Yeah, I just take it. Yeah, that risk, if it happens, it happens. If it don't, it don't. I accept it.
And
Escalate.
Top one.
Increasing security protocols. And at Escalate, I may need my boss to do that. I may, as a project manager, I may not be able to change our security system at this company, but I'll talk to my sponsor, escalate this up to my boss, or maybe the security manager at the company to change how we do security at this company. But I need to escalate that up because I can't do that on my own. Now we're talking about workflow again. So we're going to review Kanban a little bit. It improves efficiency, quality, boosts overall throughput. This is a nice slide where it compares Kanban to Scrum. Talks about the team. Scrum is self-managed, the progress. I think we saw this slide earlier. Flow-based is usually the term I see with Kanban, because I'm flowing from left to right as I pull work across that Kanban board. I don't have I still have cycle time and lead time, obviously, because that's the work, but I don't have sprints. I don't have iterations in Kanban like I do Scrum. Okay. Extreme programming, we talked about these earlier. I think we had this slide. These are new slides. I mean, these are literally the same slides we had before, but they are new. So they are reviewing. I told you there's a lot of review in this. So actually, I think I'm not in review. I think these are the same slides. Let me see where I dropped off. I think somehow I got thrown back. Look here.
I don't think so.
We were talking about risk. Yeah, I am. I am done with this section because we did this. You know, this was this. So you just did this, right?
Oh, yep.
And then the
You're
next
right.
slide is wrapping it up. So we are done with this review of, you know, again, this topic we've been talking about was measurement. So we looked how to solve problems, setting priorities, measuring performance, and then we talked about uncertainty or risk. We talked about risk. A lot of it was a review. And now I got a series of questions for you. So here's what we got left. These are the questions I would have sent you this, I would have sent you. And then the last section we have to cover is business.
Okay.
Which is this. So once we're done, we will be officially, and I think we are now, we're done with predictive project management. We're done with agile project management. And I got some more questions for you, and we can do those instead of me sending them to you. We can just do those in class. And then we're going to talk about business. Remember that I told you there's kind of 3 components of the exam: predictive, agile, and then business. So we're going to talk about the 3rd component, and this is all business, the business of project management. Okay, and that's all we got left to cover. And it's all these slides. It's all business. A lot, you'll hear the word value multiple times through here. I guarantee it. And then I have a few questions, and then we're done with this course.
Good deal.
So we're
making good progress.
I've been saying all week that we are flying at the speed of heat here. So I wasn't kidding. Right. So we can think about it. I know you want a break here in about 45 minutes, right? And then you can decide what you want to do the rest of today. We could call it a day if you want, and then finish it tomorrow, or come back and make tomorrow very short. I'll leave it all up to you. Yeah.
I think it sounds like they would appreciate my services back in the office. So if we can come back today, get as much done as we can this afternoon, and then make tomorrow a short day, I think that would probably serve my company best.
Well, we can probably finish it today if you want to come back after your event, if you're willing to come back and maybe work a little bit later today.
Okay. Yeah, that might be an option then.
It's up to you. I'm good. I mean, if you want to just drive it into the ground today, we could do it. It's your call.
Okay, let's
Okay. Well, let's see how we do. Well, I'll just keep
Sure.
going for another 45 minutes. We'll see how you do it. Again, these are the questions I would have sent you, but we can just do them right now. What do you think of this one?
Procurement strategy.
The answer they have is yeah, no, you're correct.
Because this, if it was
You're
a
right.
statement
No,
of work, that
you're
would
right.
be by the customer, right?
No, you're correct. You're correct. Number 2.
C or no, B.
Yeah, I got B.
Yeah, B.
I got B. Stakeholder satisfaction should be identified and then managed as a project objective as well. Good. How about this one?
A.
Yeah, it is A. This is a tough one. Well, so I gotta ask, why'd you pick A?
When I see hybrid, that allows me to bring in different things to a process instead of being so strict on exactly what we're going to do there. So
Okay.
if there's evolving trends, if there's new stuff that's happening, if
Okay.
there's best practices that we're learning about, we want to integrate those things instead of just
Okay.
being like, nope, it's the way that we've always done it.
That's good. That's exactly right.
Budget at completion, or estimate at completion, sorry. Or is all that just earned value management?
Yeah, that's what they have. They have C, earned value analysis,
Oh,
which I
okay, that
think
makes sense.
where I'm just using
EVA is
everything.
just all of
Yeah.
it built in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because BAC and EAC are both correct. Those are good answers, but they're both here. So I'm looking for an all of the above answer, and C is kind of an all of the above answer type thing. How about 5?
C.
Yeah, it is C. Inputs required. Well, the project charter, the project management plans, project documents, all those things will help me write that communication management plan. Number 6.
C.
Yep. Good. 7. Did we talk about communication channels?
Not in this way.
Forget it then. That's a PMP question. We'll stick with CAPM. How about this one?
B.
Yeah, B. I mean, how do I capture stakeholder interest? Well, I communicate with them. That kind of stands off. Number 9. This is
A,
kind
B,
of
and C.
a so this is kind of a question on page 25, frankly. So they're looking for the processes associated with schedule management, and they want me to choose 3. A is correct, define activities. So you remember the processes for schedule management. The first one is to develop that schedule management plan, the how-to guide. Then I define activities, and then I sequence activities, which isn't one of the options here. Then I estimate activity duration, so C is correct. And then finally, I roll it all up to a developed schedule, which is D.
Yeah,
So it's
and
A,
that
C,
B
D.
is part of
Resource.
knowledge area 9, project resource management.
Correct. B and E are legitimate
Both part of that.
processes, but they're not scheduled, they're resources. Yeah, number 10. Same type of question. This is a page 25 question again.
A.
It is A. I plan quality management. That's where I create a quality management plan, a how-to guide. Then I manage quality during executing process group. And then I control quality during the monitoring and controlling process group. So it is A. 11.
Is that supposed to be changes instead of charges at the end?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it should be changes. Yeah, I don't think it's charges. Yeah, it should be changes. I didn't even pick that up. But it is changes, is what it is.
So there should be a control change board to approve those before going any further. But you would want to, I mean, B is also something you'd want to do.
So pick one. They only want one answer.
D.
But read D, asking the change control board to approve the changes before notifying the team. That seems very dangerous. So I'm approving the change before I even discuss this change with the team. What if there's
Gotcha. So we want to give them the feedback that the team has provided in order to help inform the
right?
approval of the changes.
Well, can I evaluate the impact that change will have on my project? Probably not, because I'm just the project manager. I'm not an expert. It's an electrical change. I'm not an electrician. So I need to talk to the team and say, hey, the customer gave me this change. What's it going to do to the project? And then they tell me. And then I tell the change
That makes
control
sense.
board. Yeah. So it's B, giving information, access to information to the team and then frequently checking with them. This is a great question for the exam in if I didn't know the answer, I think I could eliminate the others. Look at A, having control over planning and delivery without delegating decisions. I'm going to be doing a lot of delegating in a project, so that don't even make sense. C, selecting different team members to take the project management role on. I don't
That's
do
weird.
that. I'm the project manager. And
Who
then
wants to
D,
be the project manager
yeah.
this week, Dave?
Yeah. And then D is an odd one because again, I'm kind of cutting the team out of it. So I think I could have eliminated the other 3 and got to B even if I didn't know the answer.
That makes sense.
All right, let's take 10, come back and we'll do a few more questions and then we'll break.
Okay.
All
Sounds
right,
good.
I'll see you in 10. Thanks. All right. Here's question number 12.
B.
Correct. You know, each project is unique, and what tailoring is you know, modifying it. And that's one of the things you do as a project manager. How about this one?
B.
Yeah, good. 14.
B.
Yes, it is. 15.
B.
Yep. This is a tough one. So you're going to need a sheet of paper here. This is again, let me see here. The following information. So I got A, B, C, and D. So I got 4 activities. Activity A starts the same time as activity B. So they're being done in parallel.
Mhm.
Activity C follows B. So again, I'm writing these down on a piece of paper here. Activity C follows B and activity A. So they come together. And then activity D follows activity C. So I got
Can
to
we?
pick. You are correct. A lot easier than I thought. 17. What am I on? No, 17. Go ahead. You're doing incredibly well here. I gotta say that.
No, this is B.
Yes, it is. 18.
D.
Yes, it is. 19.
A.
20.
C. Or would that be D?
They got D. I don't know if we mentioned official.
We
Hey,
didn't
you
really
do.
talk about those, but I guess it makes sense. Formal would be like to your boss. D
Well,
would you'd want something, letterhead or probably a government form that you need to fill out. So
I would think formal would also want I would think formal would also be what I would do to the government as well, but maybe not. Hey, so I tell you what, you were doing so well on these. These are good. These are what you call CAPM questions, which is the course we're going through right now, CAPM. But if you notice, they're very short and they're very direct questions. I'm sending the questions to you now, so you got them all if you want to look at them later. But
okay.
the questions are very short, right? Let me show you some PMP exam questions. They're not the same way. They're formatted a little differently.
More story based.
More story-based. Just for fun, let's do a few of these. Hang on. I mean, it's the same material. The material's the same. So, the material's the same. It's just the format of the question is a little different. So let's look at maybe 10 of these just for fun. Notice before you even read it, notice that the question is more scenario. It tells you a little story. During user testing, a client agrees, blah, 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 blah. And then it asks you a question. So take a look at this one.
I don't have it's not up
Oh, well, that makes the
if you're
question
waiting
hard.
for me.
That makes the question harder. Yeah. How about now?
Hey, there we go. It says practice exam.
Yes, it does.
All right. Discuss concerns with the client.
Absolutely. And remember that acceptance criteria, that's where I define what is acceptance, what is success. Maybe I need to re-review that with this client, because we should have worked with the client on day one to develop that. How about this one? This is one of those PMO questions.
I don't know what fishbowl windows are, but I like that. Because generally Kanban boards are pretty easy to understand.
This is what they had as an answer.
I
Now,
could see that being right too.
a fishbowl window is a legitimate term, and it's used in project management. And what it is if we do have geographically separated teams, like this does talk about, a fishbowl window is like a live terminal where if we want to talk to each other, we just go to a terminal and turn the camera on, and now the two of us are talking. Very similar to what we're doing now. You may be working at your desk, I'm working at mine, we're writing emails to each other, and then we say, hey, let's get on the monitor and talk face to face. So we both walk over to this monitor in the corner of the room, and we see each other now, and we hold a conversation face to face. Okay.
Okay.
And they
Yeah,
call
the
it
digest of retrospectives was the thing that I was just like, who's going to sit there and read all the feedback there? I liked the burnup charts, but if you're just
But-
looking for well, I guess it does say key lessons learned.
That's what I was going to say. There's two requirements. They want to share progress status, so the burnup charts will solve that, and key lessons learned.
Yeah, that makes sense. Review and understand the business case and project goals, because that's what you're going to do to build the project charter. And then
Absolutely. That is perfect. And a lot of people don't get this one because, again, they gave you the assumptions, restrictions, and preliminary scope. So I got a lot of information on the product. That's great. I need that for the charter. But I also remember that other side of the coin, which is the business side. So I need to go review the business case and the project goals for the company because I need to put both of them in. That's good. That was a tough one. How about this one?
uh-oh. Working on deliverables. So we haven't even put the risk register together yet. I'd go statement of work.
They had this, an issue log is a list of problems. Remember, we said that the word issue is a polite way of saying the word problem. And an issue log is a list of issues, very similar to
Yeah,
a
but
risk
you wouldn't
register.
review it. You'd add it to the issue log.
Right, I definitely grab it and add it to it. I guess that's what they mean by the word review.
Okay.
Statement of work probably won't even, statement of work was written by the customer before we even bid on this project. So the statement of work was written months ago, and the statement of work never knew we were going to have a data breach. I mean,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be in that. So that's why they have an issue log.
Okay. I can understand that. Steering committee. I like parts of all these. Well, 3 of them.
That's what they do on the exam. A lot of times, like you saw a few questions like that where all 4 answers you could argue are correct, but they'll tell you right at the beginning of the exam, pick the best answer.
I think the first thing you got to do is schedule the introductory meeting with the new steering committee before you can even understand how you're going to tailor your communications to them.
Well, I'm going to write up that communication plan and I'll show it to them. I'll add them to my stakeholder register and I'll do stakeholder analysis to figure out how to engage them. So I'm kind of going back to the drawing board for stakeholder management, where initially the steps were identify stakeholders, create that stakeholder engagement plan. And that's what I'm doing. So I got new people, new stakeholders, and I also have a change in my communications because now I got to report to a whole committee, not just one person now.
Right.
I'm going to have to change my stakeholder register. I'm going to have to change my stakeholder engagement plan for these people. And then that will immediately lead me into changing my communication management plan for these new people. One of the things about this exam is take it one step at a time. A lot of times on the exam, they'll give you all 4 steps you need to do, but they're asking for the first thing. What do I do first?
Hold a discussion with the vendor.
Absolutely. You know, some of these others, you may argue some of these other answers, and these other answers may very well be step 2, step 3, step 4. But I want the first step. The first step is, hey, we got a problem. You're late. I talked to the vendor. Say, hey, we got a contract that you're supposed to finish this by Saturday, but it doesn't seem like you're going to make it. What can we do? What can I do to help you complete this on time? I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I had to help a vendor who I'm paying to do the work crawl over the finish line. Because, I could be an a-hole and just hold them to the contract, but who's going to be accountable for this? Me. I'm the one who's going to get blamed if this vendor doesn't perform. So I help them. I may never hire
help
them.
Cover some overtime.
Or just help them organize. I mean, I have literally helped vendors organize their own work. I've never hired them ever again, but I'm stuck with them. And so
Right.
I gotta drag them over the line. and whatever it takes, because I'm the one who's going to get yelled at if the project goes wrong, not them.
Meet with the functional manager and talk with the new resource.
Perfect. Exactly right. This is another example of the type of questions they have on the exam where they want you to leap to fire them, throw them off the work site. No. Talk to the boss and say, I got bad people working for me. No. You figure out where is the best place for this person. Maybe this person is not performing well because you got them working the budget and they can't do math. And so they're having a hard time. But their background is they used to work in the quality department. Great. Maybe I put them more to the quality checks on the project where they understand quality very well. That's what they're trying to get at there. Okay. So you're doing very well in these questions. I have to say, that. So let me, this is probably, let me just get to my slides and show you where we're going to stop now for the break, and then what we'll do when you come back. And we'll see how far we get. Again, you seem to be picking this up fairly easily. But this is when we come back, we're going to get into the business side of project management. They usually give me an introduction here. Yeah, in this session, we'll talk about the importance of the business analysis role. Those are the people in the business side. Remember, working in projects, you're called a developer. So you're a developer, but now we're going to look at our counterparts in the business side of this company. Stakeholders, how they influence business folks, how I track the business side of projects. So that's what we're going to talk about. And that's the rest of the slides. We are done with predictive project management. We are done with agile project management. And now we're going to do that third side of the triangle, the business side of project management. And that's what we'll do when you get back. Any questions before we break?
Nope.
Okay, so when are we coming back together again?
It should be around 1 o'clock my time, which is what, 10 o'clock your time?
10 o'clock my time. Okay. And again, if you're late or you want to take more time, just pop me an email and say, hey, let's go for an half hour later or an hour later or something like that. Okay.
Okay.
And I'll do that.
Sounds
okay.
good.
I'll see
Thanks,
you.
Dave.
See you around that time. Thank you. Bye-bye. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Everything work out?
Yeah, sounded like the interview went well. So
Okay.
now it's just hurry up and wait. I think the recruiter is on vacation until Tuesday, so probably won't hear anything until then. But
Okay. Well, good. All right, let's keep going. And I truly believe we'll finish today. I was looking at the material left, and a lot of it is review. What we're going to do is look at it from the business side of the house, from the business analyst. And
okay,
you're going to find a lot of the things that they do are similar, except they're more focused on the business side of the project, vice the product side of the project. But the way they make sure that all the business requirements are identified, achieved, is very similar. So. Again, I'm not trying to hurry you out the door. You know, if you want to slow down or finish it tomorrow, just let me know. Okay.
oh no problem. I'm not
yeah.
getting that vibe from you.
Okay. So we're going to talk about business analyst framework. Talk about the importance of business analysts, the business analyst's role. Now, this is very interesting and very interesting to me as well, because I'd never experienced what we're going to be talking about. My business analyst won the contract and I never saw them again. Okay. So this is a new philosophy, and this is very big in the 7th edition of the PMBOK, where the business analyst and the developer, the project manager, need to work together. This is a new philosophy, if you ask me. It's a very good one. I love it, but I've never seen it in the real world, to be honest with you. So we'll talk about requirements from the business side of the house. We're going to re-engage with those stakeholders that we talked about, I think, on day one. I'm going to do the same drill. Go to those stakeholders, figure out how to communicate with them, figure out what their business needs are. And then I'm going to influence the project to ensure I achieve those business needs. So once again, very, very similar. A lot of this will be a review. The only difference is instead of I've been talking about product, I'm going to be talking more about the business side now. Let's look at some of these pre-questions they give us.
Business requirements or solution requirements.
Solution. Remember, we're going to review user stories again. User stories is where I'm trying to explain to you the work I want done without telling you how to do that work, because I don't answer the how question in Agile, and user stories is a how question. I'm telling you what I want, the solution I desire. How you achieve it, I don't know. And frankly, I don't care. I just want the solution.
Three.
This is where I'm conducting. I would have thought 3 too, where because I've already made the decision of who's responsible, who's accountable, who I'm consulting, and who I'm informing. But I guess the reason they say conduct stakeholder analysis is the I'm looking at the stakeholder and determining how they fit into the RACI chart.
Hmm.
I think 2 and 3 are either past or present. You know, how about this one?
Four.
Clearly defined and analyzed in the early stage of the project. Early stage of the project was the clue. Remember, in predictive, I'm doing all of the analysis, all of the planning, everything up front, and then I do the work. So the business analyst.
Oh yeah, because the business analyst is going to be involved throughout an adaptive approach.
Well, he's going to be involved in both. I mean, the philosophy that you're going to hear here is the business analyst is involved in both the adaptive and the predictive approach. This is new.
Right, but with the predictive approach, most of their involvement is going to be on the front side.
Yeah, because I'm going to do
with the adaptive, they're going to have they're going to be through it in the various aspects.
Yeah, I'm going to do all the planning up front before we even start one work package, one piece of work. The importance of business analysts. What is a business analyst? A set of activities to support the delivery of the solutions that align with the business objectives and provide value to the organization. A lot of business words in there. The word organization means my company, business objectives, business value. So again, similar, just looking at it from a different point of view, I think. It's going to look at the financial products that meet the customer needs. So again, even here, I'm looking at the customer's needs. Now, who's the customer? Customer very, very well might be the company. I'm defining the requirements, their requirements, just like I had product requirements. Now I got business requirements. There's still requirements. I may be modifying processes. You know, the example they have here is maybe I'm installing new machines in our factory. So this is something that's going to increase the value of the company when we get these new machines. And I want to translate business requirements into the stakeholder requirements. And once again, the stakeholders here may be the company. I may not even be talking about the customer or the customer who's asking for this product. Here's the business analyst. He's analyzing the business problems, recommending solutions to get business requirements, documentation for business requirements. And then his counterpart is that project manager who's ensuring the resources are applied to make sure the product, service, or program is successfully delivered. So these are two people. They could be the same person. You know, that's one of the things Pinbock's also talking about is the project manager needs to understand the business side of the house. So these could be two people, could be one person, but they're two different focuses, I guess is the word. Here's the business analyst role. Determines the need, the business need, the benefit. We saw earlier, we saw a benefits management plan. That was the benefit I hope to achieve. Elicit, this is where I'm pulling out the ideas, analyzing, looking at the documents, generating them. Identifying solutions. Okay, here's the requirements I need that the stakeholders want. How am I going to deliver them? Communicate and facilitate the delivery of this benefit or business value. Very similar to what we've been talking about. Business analyst can be performed by somebody as a business analyst role or assigned to a team member. Again, it could be the project manager, or you may have somebody on your team and say, hey, I'm going to delegate tracking the business goals to you. And that's what you're going to be focused on during this project. Strategic business analysis. When I see the word strategic, I'm not thinking of the business value that's coming out of this particular project. I'm thinking, how does this particular project help the overall company? It may be just one small little piece, but somehow it fits into the roles and the goals of the company. Elicit. I want to pull those business requirements out of the customer, out of the stakeholders. Feasibility studies, we may have to look at, is this worth the money? Is this project worth the money? We're going to talk about decision tree analysis, where I look at different ways of doing something, which is the one that's going to give me the most return on my investment. Scoping an opportunity, identifying a solution, and then building the business case. You know, a lot of this is done, or used to be, they're kind of implying it's being done with the project manager. In my career experience, all of the things you see here were done before I was even named a project manager. This was all done before I even started. The business case was completed and handed to me. So again, I'm looking, this is just all the things that are, I guess, floating around in a business analyst's head. The requirements, the enterprise analysis, how it fits into the company, tailoring. There's that word tailoring, going to be tailoring here too. Developing, we'll talk about functional and non-functional requirements, documenting the needs, probably in that business case. The skills a business analyst need, of course, communication, creative thinking, decision-making, familiar with the development methodologies. So this is somebody who needs to have a understanding of predictive or agile, okay? Doesn't necessarily have to be a project manager, but should be familiar with those methodologies. And hybrid, where I mix the two. Maybe from management or higher up in the organization. Political awareness. Now, the project management uses the word political not to talk about Republicans and Democrats. What they mean by political awareness is how things are done in your company. You know, if I need to get a part shipped overnight, who do I go talk to? Oh, that's Mary down in supply. Go down and talk to her. She can do stuff overnight. You know, you kind of just learn, and it's maybe not even written down anywhere. You just kind of learn how your company works, operates. Problem solving, obviously, and technical awareness. Interpersonal and team skills. That's a phrase you'll hear a lot in project management. That simply means getting along with other people, dealing with other human beings, conflict management, being aware of cultural differences, facilitation, being able to draw or elicit ideas out of people, influencing people, negotiating, presenting, system thinking, and then detail-oriented. Again, these are kind of the things of how to deal in the real world, frankly, with people. This is a nice slide where it compares business analysts to project management. It defines them. I think we already had a slide on the definition. But then the focus, I like that focus part. Let's look at the project manager first. To undertake a temporary endeavor to create a specific, unique outcome. Well, that's kind of the definition of a project. To manage constraints and apply resources to deliver the value. The business analyst, to elicit business requirements and meet the needs of the stakeholder to produce a solution that delivers a measurable business value. Some nice definitions there. And the scope, again, I'm looking at scope both ways. The scope is the same. The requirements are the same. I'm building one product. The difference is, what am I going to get from that product? Okay, I build a house. Customer gets the house, gets to live in it. That's their house now. The business analysts don't get a house. What does he get? What business function am I going to get from that house? It could be profit. It could just be, hey, we're going to get a picture of this house in Better Homes and Garden. And then hopefully more people will come to us to build houses from us because this one's so beautiful. That's a business value. Okay. What do you think of this?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, the business analyst could be somebody from the business side of the company, or it could just be somebody in the project management team who gets this dumped on them to track. Requirements as the focus of the business analyst. This sounds very similar to what we talked about on the first day when we talked about scope. The project manager, remember, the first thing he did was develop that scope management plan, and then he collected requirements. Sounds like what I'm doing right now. What are the requirements, the conditions necessary in the product that's going to satisfy a business need? See, if I was talking project management, I would have put a period after the word result, and I'd be done. They add another section there. Business required high-level statement of the business objective, business goal, organizations. So now I'm talking about the company again. I'm not talking about technical requirements. There's the business requirement. What's it going to do for the organization, or what's it going to do for the company? Stakeholder requirements, I'm still going to engage, as a business analyst, I'm still going to engage those stakeholders because they're the ones who are going to give me this information. Solution requirements, how will I achieve I got the requirement, great. How am I going to achieve it? And then transition. This could be after I've produced the product, do I need to train my workers on how to use it? I think we saw an example earlier where I was putting new equipment on the factory floor. Great. That helps my company. Do I now, before I allow somebody to use that equipment, do we need to send them to school so they know how to use that equipment? So I want to look at the needs of the stakeholders. I want to focus on what they want. I need those stakeholders again to explain the requirements to me, just like I did when I tried to define scope on day one. Solution, I want to find out how I do it. Here's an interesting concept: functional requirements, non-functional requirements. Okay. Functional requirements are what I need to produce whatever I'm making. These are the requirements to make the product, make the thing, so that it can be used at the company. Non-functional requirements are things outside that I still need to achieve, but they really don't help me with any value directly. For example, a non-functional requirement might be the security guard I have around the factory while I'm building this product. The security guard is not the product. He's not going to deliver me any value, but I need him there so that nobody steals the ideas or steals my proprietary knowledge of how I build this thing. So it is a requirement. You know,
I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm using or I'm making something that needs a certain type of glue. And the glue needs it needs an area that's temperature controlled in order to cure properly. Would that be considered a functional requirement because it is something that needs to happen for the solution to happen, or is it non-functional because it's more about the environment and it's not really adding any? I guess the value that's being added is the glue works as intended. So that would make it functional?
I agree with you. I think it would be functional because if I didn't keep it in that environment, I wouldn't get the product, the glue. It wouldn't mix right, or it wouldn't. I couldn't produce glue unless I had the right environment. A non-functional requirement, I was going to say, was environmental, similar to yours, but you know, again, from the ship repair industry, we paint a ship. Great. I got some extra paint. What do I do with it? Because I'd love to just, you know, dump it down the drain and throw the can over the fence. That's pretty cheap for me to do.
EPA wouldn't be very happy with that.
So I have a non-functional requirement to have somebody bring a truck into my lot. I load these half-empty cans of paint in it, and they haul it away to properly dispose of it, and I got to pay them to haul this paint away. Did that help me with the product? No. The ship's already painted. The customer's happy. They love the paint job. So now I'm doing something that does not help my product at all, really, but I still got to do it. You know, I can't not do it.
Right.
Transition requirements. You know, this is also where I'm going to transition the product into, you know, maybe into my workplace. Maybe I take those blueprints and hand them to the operation manager so he start making automobiles. It may only happen once, a transition. But that would be for a project, for example, where I don't necessarily have a customer. I'm trying to do something internal and now I'm transferring it somewhere else in the company, such as from the project management side to the operations side. Project quality requirements. We talked about requirements. Quality, like we said, is just one more requirement. It's just another requirement. And I'll have quality requirements here. Again, the business analyst is going to look at the business requirements, the product requirements that are going to support the business. And that'll result in my project management efforts. Because once we've decided the requirements, These are the requirements for the project. These are the requirements for the business. Now me, the project manager, needs to figure out how to achieve them. And I'll achieve the requirements for the project, the quality. That's my job now. Requirements documentation. Boy, we saw that term earlier too. That's a list of all the requirements. I'm going to keep that. That's a document. That's one of my records. Okay. And that's going to help me create, or not, I got that backwards. And they got these slides, I think, backwards. Under scope, do you remember I had, the first thing I did was plan scope management, and I got 2 how-to guides. I got a scope management plan and a requirements management plan. Scope management plan told me how to define scope, how to track scope, how to monitor scope, and the requirements management plan told me how to collect requirements. And that's what this is. Describes how requirements will be analyzed, documented, managed. A how-to guide for requirements. Okay. Then step 2 is this one, collecting the requirements. And once I collect them, and I'm collecting both product and business requirements now, once I collect them, I'm going to put them in that requirements documentation, which is a list of requirements. And I bet you a buck we're going to hear about requirements traceability matrix here, okay, which is going to tell me why these requirements are important, where do they come from, who says I need to achieve this requirement. So really nothing new here. It's just the only new thing is I'm not talking product, I'm talking business. But it seems like the processes are very similar. Now we're going to talk about stakeholders a little. Look at this, stakeholder identification, analyzing stakeholders, figuring out how to engage them and communicate with them. And I'm going to be talking to them about business planning and transitioning this to a future state. So again, the process is all the same except the business. You know, transitioning to a future state could be, you know, my project was creating the iPhone, and now I've created an iPhone, and now the business side is going to figure out how to bring in the marketing folks, the sales folks, and we're going to start selling iPhones here now. Okay, I'm done. I made an iPhone. Here you go. Here's your iPhone. As a project manager, I leave. I don't sell anything. I don't market anything. I make the product, and now the business side is going to take it and run with it. They'll be transitioning it to a future state. Here's identifying stakeholders. Stakeholders could come from management, you know, senior people, my sponsor, the functional managers, the other department heads at my company. Could come from business folks, okay? Could come from users. Who's going to use this product? Could come from the team, their stakeholders. And then the government, vendors, customers, competitors. Remember that definition of stakeholder, anybody who even knew my project was going on as a stakeholder. Very broad definition. And sure enough, look at this. I can't think of anybody who's not on this list right now. I'm going to create a stakeholder list. Now, the proper term for this is a stakeholder register, and that's a list of all the stakeholders. And that's what I'm going to create right now. Internal and external stakeholders. Going to review the charter, the vision statement to make sure I collect all the stakeholders, again, both external and internal. I want to identify the subject matter experts. I'm starting to analyze these folks now. Determine which individuals have what impact on the project, because we know there's key stakeholders or major stakeholders, and then there's minor stakeholders. I may look at the organizational chart. That's one place to look for stakeholders. President, vice president, department heads, you know. Sponsors, definitely a stakeholder, probably one of the key stakeholders. I'm going to look for who will benefit. You know, look, financial support. Maybe the financial folks could be stakeholders. Who's going to help me with a solution? Who's going to approve changes? Help me with the solution? So I'm just identifying stakeholders right now. Okay, I've identified the stakeholders. Now I want to analyze them. I want to build on that stakeholder register. Right now, my stakeholder register is simply a list of names. That's it. Don't tell me anything about these folks. Now I want to start to elicit a discussion with them. I want to start talking about the problem or opportunity that we're trying to achieve, how we should achieve it. What results do you think we should achieve? How will this fit into our enterprise or organization? And then I'm going to start, as I get these inputs, these requirements, these ideas, these visions from my stakeholders, I'm going to start adding it to my stakeholder register. So my stakeholder register started with one column. Now I'm adding another column, another column, another column. I may add 20 columns to this thing as I slowly analyze these people. Again, they take each one now. So again, I want to analyze the problem. What are we trying to do? How are we going to do it? And how do we know we've succeeded? The word I'm thinking of right now is acceptance criteria. The Agile folks, just on a side note, I don't know if we saw this term. I think we did. The Agile folks call acceptance criteria definition of done. Means the same thing. And then how does it fit into my organization or enterprise? And then I'm going to add the information to my stakeholder register. And now I'm conducting analysis of the stakeholders. Each one is different. Each one has different desires, trying to capture all those. Okay, that's the stakeholder analysis. Gathering, analyzing quantitative and qualitative information. The quantitative may be a specific number. I want to get 5% profit. I want to get 3 new customers after this project's over. Qualitative may just be, I want to have a better product than we had. I want to make things faster or something like that. So I identify my stakeholders. I understand them by engaging them. I analyze them. I prioritize the desires. I engage them again. And then I monitor the results or make sure I achieve them through acceptance criteria. And then it keeps going around. This isn't a one-time process. I keep doing it again and again and again throughout my entire project. Now, one of the things they say here is stakeholder analysis should be confidential, because I think you saw a stakeholder analysis table earlier, and I had power and interest. Now, some people may be offended if you say, well, this is a very low power stakeholder. We don't, he's really not that big a deal. So
we don't got to worry about Bob. Bob's just here to make him feel good.
Yeah. So you don't want to share that with anybody, even though it may be true. You may say Bob's a stakeholder and all, but all he does is come in and stare at his computer all day, then go home. So don't sweat him. So I'm analyzing these stakeholders. What's their power, their impact on the project, their attitude, their beliefs, expectations, influence, proximity. Don't forget there's such a thing as a negative stakeholder. So even if somebody says this is the stupidest project I've ever heard, it's a complete waste of time and money, that person is a stakeholder. Now, you may want to cultivate that person to get them from being negative to at least neutral. At least let them say, all right, do your project. I'm not going to even get involved in this thing. Great. That's perfect. Don't sabotage me. Let's see what happens. Okay. That would be fun. And this is that matrix that we were just talking about. Another way of, this is why that question bothered me a little. I don't take RACI as an analysis tool. I treat RACI as a statement of fact.
That's more direction.
That's what I'm thinking too. So, like designing the sitemap. Well, the persons who are going to do that is the analyst and the designer, whoever that is. They're responsible for doing it. Okay. They'll consult with the project manager. They'll inform the front end developer. The one thing I don't like about this picture is I don't see an A anywhere. I need an A. Somebody's got to be accountable for the design of the sitemap. If the sitemap is not produced, whose fault is that?
Yeah, it's going to be on the project manager.
Yeah, so the project manager, and I've seen a C and an A. They should probably have a C and an A in this example, because I can be consulted and accountable. You know, maybe they develop the sitemap between the designer and the analyst, and then they bring it to me and say, hey, what do you think of this? You think we're on the right track with this thing or not? And that's consulting with me. But I've always seen the RACI chart is not an analyst tool. It's a statement of fact. Here it is. Hey, Bob, you have to do this. Susie, you're doing that, you know? So I don't know. I didn't like that question. Influence of project approaches on business analysis. Okay. Structured sequential progress, that's in predictive. Those phases or several iterations in Agile. So I could do the same thing to achieve my business requirements. In a predictive approach, we know predictive is very structured. I do feasibility. I do analysis, defining the requirements. I design it, meaning I find a solution that's going to achieve those requirements. That's all that's all done in the early stages of the project. Again, I haven't done any work yet. All I've been doing is developing solutions, developing plans.
Yeah, no tangible results.
Right.
Yet.
Now I'm ready to start building this thing. And I'm going to trace it just like I do in product development. I'm going to trace these requirements to see, am I progressing? And eventually I'll be able to test it. Did I achieve it? Did I succeed? But very structured, I think, is the point they're making here. I do all the planning up front, I do the work, and I got a product. I plan for the business value, I do the work, and now I've achieved that business value. Adaptive now in Agile. What if I don't necessarily, I kind of know the business value I want, but I really can't define it that well. You know, I want more customers. That's what I want. That's the business value. What does that mean? I just want more, I want to be more popular. I want to be the #1 house builder in the nation. How do you define that requirement? How do I achieve that? How do I get that solution? That's a little harder to explain. So I may do iterations. And here's one approach. These almost look like 3 predictive projects. They're not. It's just that each iteration, I'll do a little feasibility, do a little analysis, design, build, do a little testing. And then at the end of that iteration, I will go to the review or demo and show it to the customer, show it to the stakeholders. I'm not done yet, but this is what I've done so far. Do you think this is heading in the right direction to achieve what you want in the business world? They'll give me feedback, and I'll put that into iteration number 2. Do some more work, show it to them again. They'll give me feedback. I'll put that feedback into iteration number 3, and I keep doing that. So that's one way of using Agile to identify these things. And there you go. Business analyst roles not clearly defined. So this business value is not clearly defined. But I still need to do all the things in a predictive project. I just can't clearly define them. I still need to have a design phase, a construction phase, a testing phase, whatever those may be. So that's what we talked about was what is a business analyst? What's the role? What is requirements? How do the stakeholders play into this? And then how do I develop approaches? Predictive, Agile. Again, I hope a lot of that was review. Okay. Domains now. Next lesson. Business analyst domains. And they say already 5 domains of business analyst. I guess they're going to talk about here. Business analyst planning, assessment, requirements, traceability, and then the solution. So here's some questions before we begin.
User story.
Absolutely, user story. I'm glad you recognize that. We're going to be talking about user stories again here. Okay. The only difference is the user story now is not going to be explaining to you what I want in the product. It's going to be explaining to you what I want from this business model or business requirement.
Just a process model.
They have an interface model. I'll show you an example
Oh,
of
because
these.
it's how they interact with one another.
Yeah, I'll
The
show you a
relationships.
the word wireframe simply means I got things and they're connected by lines. You know, for example, I may build a product and I want to show you how different people will be using it and how do they interface with it. So I think it's better. We're going to get to it. It's probably easier to explain with a picture, and we got pictures coming up. And then how about this one?
Ooh, is that a rule model or is that a process model?
Oh,
Rule
they
model.
do. Rule model.
It's basically if thens basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does this have a blah? Yes or no? And then you
Yeah.
follow that to
Exactly. Exactly. Good. Okay, here's these 5 domains we're going to get into more detail with. Business analyst planning, needs of the analysis, requirements, elicitation and analysis, traceability and monitoring, and then the solution. And I think we're going to deep dive each one of these here. So here's the first one, planning. Identifying the stakeholders, understanding and engaging the stakeholders which is another word for analyzing them. Requirements management, evaluation, and then the project approach. I wish they would use the right terminology. Identifying stakeholders is the right terminology. I would say analyzing stakeholders is the second one, which means understanding and engaging. Requires management is good. Evaluation, I think, is trying to take those requirements and figure out how I'm going to do it. And one of the ways is the approach, the project approach. How am I going to do this project? So I have a business analyst plan that describes the requirements that I need to elicit, gather, analyze, document, and then manage throughout the project. And then in the requirements management plan, it's going to cover those for both the project requirements and the business requirements. They come together. They're all in that requirements management plan. They're all listed in the requirements documentation. They're all explained in the requirements traceability matrix. Okay. And we've talked about the difference between product and project, right? Product is the thing I'm holding. This is what we made. The project is everything around me that we have to do.
Yeah, the product is going to have an owner.
Yeah. Well, a
Whereas
project.
you're the project owner is going to be you, essentially.
Well, and a project requirement could be that earned value analysis. I need to report to the sponsor once a week on the progress we're making in the project. Does that have, is earned value analysis going to be part of the product that I'm making? No, it's not going to be part of the product, but I need it to track to make sure I complete this product on time, on budget. Business analysis. Okay, let's see what we got here. Got to move a few things because I'm being blocked here. Type of activities to be conducted. Okay. Requirements analyzed model that are required or expected. How requirements are to be documented, communicated to stakeholders, the business analyst deliverables to be produced, which will be right in there with all the others. The roles and responsibilities of participating in the requirements activities. So again, on that RACI chart, I may very well have some business analyst deliverables, and I may have people on that RACI chart who are responsible, accountable, consultant, informed. How they'll be prioritized. List of requirements. I got to track them, manage them. I got to validate them and verify them. Remember, we talked about that with scope. We called it verify scope. Well, I'm going to verify these requirements. They're just like scope 2. These business requirements. What is the acceptance criteria? How will I know I've achieved them? And there you go. I let it in. There it is. Acceptance criteria. That's going to tell me how to validate and verify that I've accomplished that business requirement. Domain 2, needs analysis. So this is the next one. What project solution addresses the problem or opportunity? Is there a proposed solution, a good use of the organization resources? What will business value be realized? You know, this is interesting too. Again, think of yourself as a business person more right now than a project manager. Now you're looking at, okay, I got the requirements of what we're doing. Is this worth it? Yeah, we're going to achieve these requirements, but are they worth it? Are they worth my time? Are they worth my resources? Are they worth the money I'm going to have to invest in this project? Maybe not. Maybe it's not even worth it. So I got requested by the business stakeholders. I have an internal methodology to achieve them. And then I have a recommendation from the business analyst whether we're going to do it or not. So when do assessments occur? Well, Aspire, I get the idea. It's a great idea. Let's do a business case to see if it's profitable. Let's create the charter. Let's develop the plan, execute the plan, and then deliver the product or finish it. So, you know, I think where the business folks come into play, yeah, there you go, good. I think where the business folks come into play are those first two. Hey, it's a great idea. That is a fantastic idea. Let's do the business case to see if I can get a return on my investment, to see if it's worth my money, to see if it's worth proceeding any further. And if it is, then I will do it. I'll turn, you know, the project manager will develop it for us. So this first one is the pre-project. It's just an idea right now. Now I'm going to take that idea and put evidence, details. I'm going to do analysis. What is the return on the investment? How much do we think this will cost? What value will we get out of it? Is it worth more than me? You know, one of the decisions I'm making in a business case, if I got to invest $1 million to do this project, am I going to get more than $1 million back? Because I could take $1 million, put in the bank and get interest.
Right.
I mean, you know, am I going to make more money? So, okay, I guess at some point we said, yes, this is a good idea. And yes, we are going to make some money. So let's do that charter. Let's kick off this project. Let's develop the plan, the execute, the monitoring, controlling, and the closing. All those process groups we've been talking about. Who am I going to interview about this or consult with? Well, of course, the sponsor. Once again, just like we saw earlier, the sponsor is the one who's authorizing me to do this project. The product owner, if it's an Agile project, subject matter experts who are probably on my team, end users might be customers, and then maybe, again, my team to figure out the solution. So I'm talking to these folks. Here's a definition of the word sponsor. This is the person who formally designates the project, authorizes it to exist, designates the project manager by name, authorizes you to start spending resources, hiring people, buying material, renting equipment. This is the person who legitimizes it. If you don't have a charter, technically, you don't even have permission to be doing this stuff. Business analyst needs assessments, going to review documentation, assess the organizational goals, so that's the company's goals, clarify the needs, the problems, the objectives, look at options to achieve them, create a solution, draft a statement. And the statement I'm thinking about here is a scope statement, okay, because I've reached a solution for scope. Now I want to draft a statement. I'm thinking a scope statement. Maybe do some benefit analysis. I'll do that as part of my scope statement. Remember, we talked about this with scope, where the value engineers, the system engineers come in and say, hey, I can give you that business value this way, cheaper and easier. So those people start to talk to me now too. What are the needs of the process? I want to identify the problem. That makes sense. Look at our current state. You know, this is what the factory floor looks like today. This is what I would like it to look like tomorrow. It's what I want to get to. Viable options to achieve that. A roadmap telling me how to get from A to B. Look at the business case. Develop the charter. I think I'm back to what I was before. Okay. Identify the problem, understanding the situation. What's the problem? What effect does it have? What's the impact? Seek agreements with the stakeholders. Compare the current state to the future desired state. Document it. Maybe do interviews, observations, questionnaires, trying to find a solution now. Put some data down in these charts. We saw value stream map, root cause analysis, Ichikawa. SWOT analysis. What SWOT analysis is, this is something you do in risk management as well. As SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So this is something where you say, hey, what is one of the strengths of our company or the strengths of this team? And you identify various strengths, and I might be able to turn those into opportunities. Remember, good risks is an opportunity. And I'll ask the same question for the W, weaknesses. What are some of the weaknesses of our team or our company? And we may be able to turn those into threats. So that's what those are. They help focus your ideas. Affinity diagram, there's that feature model, trying to achieve a feature. Gap analysis, is there a gap that we're trying to fill? Kano analysis, what is that? Remember Kano?
Yeah. Oh, shoot. What? Go back to my notes here.
It was an agile term.
Yeah, let's just go over it.
It talked about prioritization. And so I looked at all of the user stories and I determined which ones of them are basic, meaning user stories I've got to do to make the product work. I got to do them. And then I had performance ones that makes the product work. The example I had was the video game. Performance one, basic ones were the computer boots up, the software loads. It's got to do that. Performance is it's a race car game. I got race cars, they go around, and then I had exciters to make it cool.
Yes.
Well, I may do this same thing with these business requirements. Which ones are basic? I gotta do them just to pay for this project, right? Break even. Okay. And then performance ones. What do I have to do to say I've accomplished it? And then if we're really, getting greedy here, exciters, the stuff that makes it cool or really goes over the top. I'll have a process flow, alignment model. We talked about some of these, a solution matrix, different solutions. We're going to be talking about decision trees. Hey, I want to improve my factory. Do I build a new factory or do I upgrade my existing factory? I want to look at different options. So I'm going to do decision tree analysis. What's the expected monetary value of building a brand new factory What's the expected monetary value of upgrading my existing factory? That might tell me the best direction to go. So, you know, we've seen this acronym before, SMART. This was, we saw this, I think, when we were talking about determining performance or measuring performance of the project. It could be the same thing here. Be specific of what you want. Whatever you want should be measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. Okay. I think another way of saying this, frankly, is realistic. You know, you can't shoot for the moon. You gotta, you know, shoot smaller first. Determine the viability and options and recommend a solution. So this is looking at various, well, I'll tell you what, let's take a break. I got 10 till, let's take 10 minutes, come back at top of the hour, and we'll start with determining viable options and recommending solutions.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, I'll see you. Thanks. Okay, keep going here. Determine viable options and recommended solution. So this is applying various techniques to find a solution, looking at possible solutions, determining which solution is the best, and then implementing that one. My company may have practices, processes, ways to measure, meaning established standards. You know, so what we're just talking about is I may have these from my company on how to do these things, established standards. What are those?
OPAs.
There you go. You got the answer before I had the question. That's exactly what I was going to say, was OPAs. Now, the other term they have on this slide is benchmarking. Benchmarking is looking at the marketplace, meaning what's my competitor doing? How do they do this? That may tell me how to do something. Well, how do they do it? Or better yet, what are they doing and what can I do to make my product better than what's already on the market? Because that's what I want to do. So I want to collect information inside my company and maybe outside of my company to provide a solution. Because ideally, if I'm making something, I don't want to make the same thing that's already on the market. I want to make something that's better. Let's see, cost benefit of analysis. This is also what the business folks are doing. They're looking at, is the investment in this project going to return something to me? Financial analysis method to determine the benefits against the cost. Another way of saying it is the benefit worth the cost. This will go into my business case because, again, the business case is often done before the project's even started. And the business case may very well tell us that this project's not worth it. So don't even go any further. We're not going to do this. Okay, I want to elicitation, pulling information from sources. And sometimes you have to do that. I may have to use facilitation. We saw brainstorming, focus groups, interviews. You know, I'm trying to pull ideas out of people. There you go, brainstorming, facilitated workshops, interviews, personal modeling. I want to get this discussion going, and sometimes I got to kind of generate the discussion. I want to get ideas on business value, return on this value. I want to determine what will this project give me for business value, what features, and then examples of how these features, whatever I do, increases my value. I may have to do this to sell my president that this needs to be done. If we accomplish these features, we're going to increase our market share by 20%. If we accomplish these features, we're going to increase our market share by 40%. Making decisions, I could use that adaptive approach where I try things, see if they work, try something else, see if it works, do short little things, short determination. Look at that number 2, delay all decision-making until as late as possible. That reminds me of lean. That was one of the principles of lean, that don't make knee-jerk split-second decisions. You don't need to. If you don't have to make a decision till next week, make the decision next week. Why are you trying to hurry it? And what they're saying on this slide is, I want to do the analysis before I make the decision. What's the solution? Well, I'm still gathering facts here. I'm not ready to tell you the solution yet. Valuation techniques. Again, I want to quantify my return. Very important. The business folks, they're looking at this much more. Internal rate of return, net present value, payback period, return on investment. Some of these you may already know. Return on investment, the internal rate of return that I'm going to get inside the company. Payback period, if I loan you $1,000, when are you going to pay me back? Okay, next month, next year? That's something I need to consider. Net present value is an interesting one. This is a formula that the MBAs of the world use frequently. This is, if I give you $1,000, how much before I invest $1,000 into your project, how much will it be worth in 3 years? That's kind of what I'm looking at. Now, net present value takes a lot of factors into consideration. Not only your return on investment, not only the payback period, it also takes into account inflation. Because if I give you $1,000 today, 3 years from now, it's not worth $1,000. So I want to be at higher than inflation too. So net present value is this very complicated formula that the MBAs use to take all these factors into account. Reason I'm telling you this is on the exam, they may tell you, hey, I got 2 projects. I got project A and project B. And then they give you a litany of numbers and information. And the reason they're doing that is to confuse you. Project A is 3 years long. It has a return on investment of 8%. The payback period is 4 months. Blah, 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 blah. And then somewhere in all that, they'll say it has a net present value of $10,000. Project B, blah, blah, blah. All these numbers they throw at you. But somewhere in those numbers, it'll say it has a net present value of $20,000. You want to take the bigger net present value. And don't worry about the other numbers. 20,000 is bigger than 10,000, so I want to do project B. Because net present value did all the math for you. All those numbers they threw at you, net present value did the math for you. But they'll try to confuse you by throwing the entire kitchen sink at you. Okay, output from all this analysis. I'm going to do a feasibility study. Is this feasible? Can we do this? Is it worth it? And of all the different ways we've looked at to accomplish these business requirements, this is the way I think we can do it for the best return on our investment. And I want to facilitate a roadmap. How are we going to get from A to B? The feature model, this is going to show me how I'm going to develop those features. Product visioning, that sounds like a roadmap to me. Or story map, which is also like a roadmap. How do these stories get sequenced? Very similar to what we talked about in Predictive, where I identified all the work packages and then I sequence them when I'm building my schedule. I can do the same thing with stories. And I think we saw a little of that when I showed you an example of a product backlog. This is where the product owner is trying to get ahead and saying, you know, I think we can do story 1, 7, and 9 during sprint 7. And then we can do story 8, 14, and 20 during sprint 10. Doesn't mean I'm locking those down. It's just an idea. It may change. I may do those stories earlier. I may do them later. It's just the idea so that I can track it. Here's a product roadmap. It is a strategic level. It's high view. Now I'm looking at portfolio. Remember, I'm not talking about the product now. I'm talking about the business. So how is this little project that you're doing going to fit into the strategic alignment of this company? How does it fit into our portfolio? Portfolio is everything I'm doing. Okay. Initiatives, the product vision, success criteria, market forces, the release, the features, and the timeline. I'm looking at how I'm going to release a product, maybe to marketing, to sell it. I don't have a customer yet. Nobody hired me to produce this product. I'm making a new iPhone. And once I make this thing, I got to prove to the customers of the world that people need this thing. You know, that's the joke with Apple. Everybody needs an iPhone now. 20 years ago, I never even knew I needed it. And now I can't live without it, you know? And that's what they're trying to do in the business world here. Business case. So I assembled the business case. We've done well researched. We've analyzed information. We've determined the best way of doing it. We've told you how it fits into our portfolio to achieve our overall business goals and objectives at this company. And I'm probably using this business case to sell it to the president to say, hey, let's do this. It could, you know, the business case could tell about the problem or opportunity that I'm trying to get. Here's my analysis of the situation, and here's my recommendation. Here's the cost benefit. You know, the boss is definitely going to be looking at that. And then the evaluation. Do we want to do this or not? Okay, it sounds like we said yes. So now I'm ready to transition to the project management world and start developing a charter. This charter, from my point of view, because I'm a business analyst, I'm talking about the business side, the knowledge, experience, product information needed to assess, develop this product. What is it going to do? What objectives? And if you look at a project charter, you will see that. They'll have customer requirements, customer acceptance criteria. And then you'll also see organization requirements, organization acceptance criteria. There's a lot of paragraphs in a project charter, but there's 4 of them. So it clearly does break them apart on the charter. Okay, what we're doing in the business, how it's going to go into the project. So the 2 have to come together, and then I'll have a solution. And that solution will satisfy 2 things. One, I'll have a product. So the project manager's happy. I made it. I made an iPhone. Never thought I could pull that off. And then the business guy's happy because now he can take that iPhone to the operation manager and we can start pumping out millions of these things. And the marketing managers start doing the commercials to start selling these things at Christmas. Okay, well, key activities in business analyst planning. So which 2 do not fit into business analyst planning?
Continuous integration and testing management.
Yep, those are the 2. We never talked about those 2, but I think we talked about the other 4. Okay. Requirements, elicitation, and analysis. So now I'm going into I guess the way they're showing this is I looked at the needs of this project. I just completed the business analysis, and now I'm trying to collect requirements. Seems like we've already done that, but maybe I'm doing it again here. Key activities, elicit requirements. So I'm trying to pull these requirements out of my stakeholders. I want to analyze them, elaborate further if I need to, decompose them, evaluate the product, prioritize the requirements, a requirements baseline, which is a better word for that would be scope baseline, because there's only 3 baselines: scope, scheduling, cost. Requirements for sign-off, another way of saying acceptance criteria, the specifications I need to achieve or the quality, how I'm going to validate that I've achieved those, and then the acceptance criteria. So eliciting requirements, asking questions to stakeholders, assisting the stakeholders in formulating the requirements. Again, these stakeholders may not know what they want, so you have to kind of facilitate the discussion, ask leading questions, open-ended questions, determine the appropriate technique to elicit that information. Sometimes I could just get all the stakeholders in the room and do a brainstorming session where they yell ideas out at me and I'm writing them down as fast as they say them. Other people might be shy. There are people who are afraid to talk in front of other people. I may want to do one-on-one interviews with them. I don't really care how I get these requirements. I just want to get them. So I'm not focusing on the how. I want to, that's what I just said. I don't care how I get the requirements. I just want to get them. So I'm going to elicit those requirements. Executive decision-making. I'm going to talk to executives. They'll influence decisions as well. I may have to negotiate with people, resolve conflict among stakeholders. One person says paint it blue, one person says paint it red. Or one person says I want 5% profit, another person says I want 10%. Got to deconflict and figure out how to prioritize those two. Okay, so this is the elicitation process, I guess. I identify the problem. I've already assembled the business case. I've determined the stakeholders and my method of engaging them or communicating with them. And now I want to define the requirements from them. All that goes together to prepare the elicitation. Then I'm going to conduct it, confirm it. I guess what they're trying to say here is before I engage these stakeholders, which is prepare for the elicitation, is I need to get my ducks in a row. So I need to fully understand the problem. I need to understand the business case. I need to know who are the stakeholders. How should I communicate with them? I need to define what I think the requirements are. Now I know enough myself that I can approach the stakeholders and hold a intelligent conversation with them. I think that's what they're saying here.
That makes sense.
I'm preparing for it. His preparing. I'm determining the objective, determining the participants, going back to that stakeholder register and say, who are the stakeholders? Identifying resources. Who can I talk to? What questions will I ask them? Set an agenda. Schedule the activity, whatever that activity is. Is it going to be a big room for brainstorming, or am I going to schedule a one-on-one discussion with the president? Brainstorming. This is where I got a group. They're just throwing ideas at me. This is a great way to collect, crazy ideas, wild ideas. And no idea is bad. Throw them all at me. This is a great way to do that. I can quickly get a lot of ideas, a multiple amount of perspectives. Some of the ideas are high level. Some need more explanation. Some need more depth, because I'm truly, just like the name implies, brainstorming. That's a great name for it. Document analysis. This is where I go back to documents and analyze them. Maybe because we're, normally I would say the contract I signed with the customer is something I look at, and maybe I would do that again. But in this case, because I'm looking for business ideas, the document I'm thinking of is maybe the business vision, the mission statements. You know, where does this company want to go? That may give me some ideas on what we want to do to take us to become #1 house builder on the West Coast or something like that. So I'm looking through those documents to try to gather requirements. Again, I don't care how I get my requirements, I just want them. I may do workshops, facilitated discussions. You could also call them focus groups, where I bring in specific people. I bring in the marketing department. Then I bring in the sales department. Then I bring in the accounting department. You know, get their ideas specifically in their world. Okay. Can do these workshops with individuals, with groups, however I want to do it here. Focus groups, there's your focus groups again, bringing in subject matter experts or specific people. I mean, people who are focused in specific areas and get their ideas, get their requirements. Interviews, again, the president's not going to come to one of my brainstorming sessions, so I may have to do one-on-one interviews with the president to get their ideas of where the president wants to take this company. I may get some requirements from this group, a small group, maybe the senior executives of the company. I'll sit down one-on-one with them. Observations. This is either looking at other departments or other companies. Hey, I saw our competitors doing this. Should we be doing that? That may give me some ideas. Watch what other departments do. Watch what other companies do and copy them. Surveys. Maybe I put surveys out to customers. How do you think we're doing? How can we improve as a company? What are you dissatisfied with? That may give me some ideas, doing surveys with people. Storyboarding or prototyping. I could build a storyboard as like a cartoon, you know, trying to show you how this product is going to be used or how this product will be incorporated into our business. How, you know, maybe I'm trying to do a better way of paying our employees. Here's a way that they can get their checks faster each week, which will help with morale because they'll get paid faster. Something like that. And, you know, I may log all this information somehow. The number of participants at each one of these. Here's adaptive versus predictive. Predictive, again, I prepare for it. I do it all. I collect all the requirements, and then I write my scope. Agile, I perform the first iteration. I ask you what you think. I get feedback. I get more requirements. I add them to my product backlog. I reprioritize them, do some more work, keep going around in a circle in adaptive. I mean, in predictive, new requirements will be added. I mean, even though I'm going to try to identify them all up front, I'm not going to be successful. More will pop up later on during the project, and that's what I have change requests for. Analyze the requirements, present the requirements in enough detail that we can understand them, and then see what the value is. Determine the analyst approach, create the methods or models, define the requirements, define acceptance, verify the requirements, validate them, prioritize them. Business analysis model. A good model helps address correctness and completeness. Clarify requirements, propose a solution. There's a lot of redundancy in these slides, I'm telling you. So I'm create and analyze models. Going to confirm the elicitation results, determine the approach, define the requirements. And if I do all of that, I'll have a model that will help me define the requirements and define the acceptance criteria. Scope models, process models, rule models, data models, and interface models. I guess this was one of those questions we had at the beginning. I guess these are different models that I could use to accomplish those two things on the right: define the requirements and create an acceptance criteria. So let's see here. Scope models, scope statement, ecosystem map, and then a context map. So I guess all of these are scope models. And then they give me a picture of a context diagram. What a context diagram is it's supposed to show you how the product will be used or how the product interfaces with other systems. It looks like in this example, I'm developing another system. Well, how will user A use this new system? How will user B use the system? How will other systems that I currently have at the company interface with it? You know, putting this up on the screen and explaining this new system to my stakeholders may help them identify requirements, may help them identify acceptance criteria to make sure that we can interface with the historical system. A lot of times you see this in companies where I have a pay system already working. This is how employees get paid. I'm trying to develop a completely new pay system. Well, I need to figure out how I'm going to transition over, because I don't want my employees to miss a paycheck when the old system shuts down and the new system kicks in. I got to somehow have an overlap, so the two systems need to be able to talk to each other so they can hand it off. Feature, this is how features are going to be produced and then incorporated into the overall product. So it looks like I got a lot of different features and how one feature will impact another feature. Business analysis, how will the user use it? What features, in what scenarios? I bet you Microsoft uses something like this to all these little things the programs do. How is somebody going to use it? Case diagram, this looks like another case of I got a person. How are they going to use this system for payments? I guess it's some sort of a pay system here. Process model. Step 1, 2, 3 is under the users. Group A. Step 5, 6, 7, 8. I guess I lay out the processes and figure out what group is going to use what process. Narrative is just a straight up description. Who's using it? What are they going to do? What benefit are they going to get? What's the precondition? What's the postcondition after I complete this project? User stories. You remember that statement at the bottom there. As a blank, I want to be able to blank so that I can. What's the benefit? And that's how I'm going to organize a user story. These are some direction on when you write a user story, you should always make it independent, meaning it can stand all by itself. It's not reliant on the previous user story. You're negotiable, so you're willing to change it. You want to make sure you have some value. It's estimatable, meaning I can measure it. It's small. Remember, the size of a user story should be small enough to be done in a single sprint. If it takes 2 sprints to do your user story, it's too big. Break it down. And it should be testable. I should have some method of acceptance criteria, definition of done, some way to determine, yes, I am done with that user story. So here's some examples. As a conference attendee, so I just explained who I am. I want to, this is what I want, be able to search project management sessions and workshop events And the reason I want this, or the benefit I'm going to get from being able to do that, is so that I can identify sessions of value. So that's a well-written user story. Tells you what I want. I want some system where I can search all of the project management sessions and workshops that are going on maybe in this entire campus. And why do you want to do that? Well, I want to identify which sessions are the most value, and that's the one I'll probably go attend. Okay, that explains it. Now, me as a team member or a developer, I should be able to write a code somehow to allow them to do something like that. Search for attendees, look for the topics, display the results, prioritize them somehow so that the user can pick the one they want to go to or buy, maybe. Here's a story map. Again, this is very similar to a roadmap, more detailed because now I'm talking about the stories, but I'm looking at what iteration do you think this story is going to get done in? What feature? Because that's why I do a user story, is to accomplish a feature or a requirement. Will it achieve? And this allows the project or product owner to have a big picture of how is he going to get from A to B, from beginning to end. I can group stories if I wanted. And I think this is what we saw in that slide I showed you a couple days ago. The releases, there's 3 releases. Well, how many iterations are in each release? And in each iteration, how many user stories are going to be done? Rule model. Business rules, decision trees, decision tables. So a decision tree is a rule model. His business rules. I guess they're using a tax-free day. I guess if I do something, it's tax-free. Tax-free shopping day. So let's buy our stuff then. Decision tree. This doesn't even go into much detail here, but I'm just trying to make a decision. Should I do this or should I do that? Now, if you take this into more detail, there's a way of calculating expected monetary value. And we do that in project management. If this was PMP exam, is we actually calculate the value of this direction versus the value of that direction. And then based on that, you're going to take the higher one. You know, I want to get the most. So I'm going to make the most money by building a new factory. I won't make as much by just remodeling our existing factory. And a lot of factors are taken into that. You know, the size of the factory, what new equipment we're going to have, the reorganization of where the equipment is. It's easier for the workers to walk around. A lot of factors go into that business value calculation. Decision table. This looks very similar to a decision tree. You know, how's weather going to affect me? Is weather going to affect me? Participants, change, bus capacity, whatever that may be. Data models. I look at relationship diagram, data dictionary, data flows, state of tables, state of diagram. This looks like it's showing how a customer could use it. I think we had a better example the other day. I think it was in the video or something, where somebody was ordering a cup of coffee, I think. From, you know, step 1 is I get greeted at the door. Step 2, they take my order. Then they give me the ticket. I pay it. They make it. They hand it to me. I walk out the door.
In the Kanban video.
Yeah. So that reminds me of that. Data dictionary lists the data fields and attributes those fields for an object. Okay. Interface models, how things interface. There's that wireframe that we saw a question on earlier. Let's see if they talk about that. So preconditions, response. I'm just working off these same slides here. I'm thinking this is something where I have a precondition and what I'm going to do, what action I'm going to do to get a certain response. This might be I'm redoing a program so that I have less buttons I have to hit to order my product off Amazon. Precondition, I have to go through 3 buttons to order. I want to get it down to 1 button. User interface. I guess how a user interfaces with the product. Report table, the name, the date, the target audience, description, data fields, calculated fields. And I guess they have an example here of a Canvas sale report. I had 45 attendees online, 212 in the room. So I had 257. And of those 257 salesmen, they sold $24,000, I guess. I think we're in the last section now, documenting a solution. So I've been doing a lot of analysis so far. I've been using a lot of models to figure out what the requirements are. So I think I know what I need to make. Now I need to figure out what solution or what direction am I going to take that provides this. So I'll validate the needs with the stakeholders. I'll define the solution that will satisfy the business needs and the product needs. I'll talk to my design teams, developers, testers, quality assurance people. I may develop a user manual or other documentation. I may have a contract, a statement of work, because I'm getting ready to do it now. Foundation with the team, a baseline for auditing to make sure I'm progressing towards the solution. Okay, matching activity, project management planning terms. Let's see what this is. Activity. Does nothing. Oh, no, that's where I just came from. Activity and task. I'm not sure what this does. It turns green and it turns red. Is that a question? Project management planning terms. No idea what that is. Now we're going to go to traceability and monitoring. So now I have my requirements. I want to trace them and monitor them as I head towards a solution. Trace the requirements, monitor the requirements, update the requirements, communicate the requirements, and then manage change. Once again, sounds very similar to what we talked about earlier. I want the ability to track the requirement from the origin to the deliverable as it is slowly created or slowly achieved, whatever I'm doing to satisfy this requirement. Traceability matrix, I knew that would pop up here somewhere. This is the one that's going to tell me the need. Where did this requirement come from? How am I going to achieve it? And then changes. If it doesn't look like this requirement's going to work, doesn't look like I'm going to achieve it, maybe I need to change something in my project. And if I do that, I'm going to need a change request. What needs to be traced? Well, obviously the business requirements, the business goals, of course, the WBS, that's the product side of the house of our discussion. The design, product development, any sort of tests we run, details of the requirements, the functionality of the requirements, acceptance tests. Maybe I'm doing quality control checks along the way. And then checking to make sure it fits into other related requirements or fits into those models. We saw that feature model, which had all those features and they were all connected. So as I'm developing this one feature, does it connect into the overall project? Here's this requirements traceability matrix. It just adds more information from requirements documentation, which is the column on the far left, just the list of all the requirements, and then it just provides that stuff on the right. Could be anything, any information. Here's what they have. Some documentation where the requirement came from, a priority of the requirement, some tests you need to do on the requirement. But again, you could put anything in there. Requirements and communication. Do I need anybody to sign off on this? You know, a lot of times you may be doing quality checks and the customer might need to sign off, or the quality department might need to sign off. Is there a reviewer or approver? Who has that authority? Who can reject it? Who can approve it? And how do they do that? Managing changes. I will have changes to these business requirements, just like I have changes to the product. And these changes are no different. The business analyst comes in and says, oh yeah, we want to change this. We want to now make we don't want to make 5% profit. We want to make 7% profit. So this is going to be a change. Okay. It's treated as a change request. It goes through the process just like any other change request. Because now I got to determine, hey, they don't want 5%, they want 7%. How will this impact my project? And then we make a decision if it's even feasible. And it may change my baseline. That's the only way I can change my baseline. I may add a new requirement. I may modify my traceability matrix because of this change that requirements documentation. Where requirements conflicts arise. This is more of a conflict discussion, I think, than requirements, because you could have conflict for anything. In this case, it's about requirements. I, as the project manager, need to make sure these conflicts are settled. There's 5 techniques. We didn't cover it, but there's 5 techniques to resolve conflict. So let's talk about those for a minute. The 5 techniques for resolving a conflict are: 1, smoothing. Smoothing is just saying, fine, do it your way. I just give in. Do it your way. That's a way to resolve a conflict. The next one is compromise. This is where we try to find a middle ground where, you know, you may not be satisfied, but I'm not satisfied either. It's somewhere in between. The next one is withdraw. Withdraw, I step back from the conflict. I don't make a decision. Now, at first you may say, well, that sounds like, copping out. Well, not necessarily. What if this conflict is technical, or I'm not really sure the answer? I need to research. I hear you. I need to research this. I don't know the answer. Or I need to sleep on it. Hey, I heard both of you. Let's give me the weekend. Let's get back together Monday morning, first thing, and we'll talk about it again. So there's nothing wrong with withdrawal. It allows you to think about it. Getting tired here. I'm forgetting what they are. This is an
I
important...
made you get up early today, Dave.
Yeah, this is an important concept, and I can't believe they don't cover conflict, but they don't. So give me a minute here. I think this is, they mentioned it in the slide there. They mentioned conflict, and then they don't explain anything, which I think is very disingenuous here. So give me 1 second here to look up conflict to make sure I got these 5. So I'm trying to remember them off the top of my head, and I'm obviously not succeeding. So these are 5 methods of conflict management or resolution. First one I said was smoothing or accommodating. That's simply conceding to the other person's position, which is fine, do it your way. You know, it may be a conflict that's so minor, it's not even worth your time. Withdraw or avoid. This is where I retreat from the situation or postpone my decision. And again, it sounds like a cop-out, but it's not. I'm trying to gather more information. I want to think about it. Compromise is where we're trying to find that middle ground, okay, where we reach a compromise somewhere in the middle. Force or direct. This is where I say, I'm the project manager and you're not. And so this is how it's going to be, period. You often see force or direct used in a safety situation. You see somebody walking around the factory floor without a hard hat on. And you say, everybody on the factory floor has to wear a hard hat. And they're trying to explain to you why they can't wear it. No, I don't want to hear it. You're on the factory floor, you're wearing a hard hat. End of discussion. Okay. Collaborate or problem solve. They often call this the best method. This is where you sit down and you talk about what's your concern, what's your concern. We talk about options, we talk about ideas, we talk about solutions, we look at various options to resolve our conflict. It's the best way of doing it because it's very thorough, but the disadvantage of it, it's very time consuming. And so you can't resolve every conflict by collaborate, or you would get nothing else done during the day. But you would do this for a big problem, something big. Hey, this product that we're building is not going to satisfy these 4 requirements. It just isn't. That's a big problem. So we need to figure out what we're going to do. We may need to change our entire direction on how we're building this thing, because we're not building what the customer wants or the business analyst wants. It's not going to achieve it. And the last one, which I do not consider a conflict management approach, this is arbitration. This is where you can't fix it yourself. Now it goes to the legal department, it goes to the contract department. This is happening, but I have a contract department to do this for me. This arbitration usually happens when you have a problem with a vendor. Okay. And frankly, those things happen all the time where the vendor's contract folks don't agree with your contract folks. Okay, there's some disagreement. Now, what I've seen in the past is if I have a problem with a vendor that requires this type of negotiation, I turn it over to the contract department. My vendor turns it over to their contract department, and us developers down on the ground just keep working. And we let the lawyers and the contract people figure it out, which will probably take them. My project will probably be over by the time they figure this out. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So there's conflict. Again, that's not part of CAPM, but they did mention it, so I felt obligated to show it.
Appreciate that.
Let me now try to get back to sharing. Okay, so here's conflict management, talking about that. Solution evaluation. So now I'm in that last category here, solution. So I've determined the future state, the goals or the objectives. I've developed a business case. I know how it fits into my enterprise or my organization. Now, with all that knowledge, I want to evaluate a solution that will give me the requirements, the business goals, the business case, satisfy my company. So I'll look at different approaches to choose from, make sure these solutions achieve my acceptance, and then solve my problem here. Evaluate the solution performance, determine the approach, evaluate acceptance criteria or definition of done if I'm doing Agile, figure out a way to verify that I do achieve that acceptance criteria, and that'll be my solution. How will performance be measured? Again, how will I know I've achieved the business requirement? That goes back to the definition of done or the acceptance criteria. How will I measure it? How will I conduct that evaluation? You know, again, when people say things like, I want to increase our customer base. How do you measure that? I mean, and how do I define that? What do you mean by increase? Increase it 5%, increase it 10%? Okay. So I need to clearly define it because I want acceptance criteria that are concrete. I can define them. I can measure them. I can tell you I succeeded or I failed. Okay. If I can't do those things, then you're guessing whether you achieved success or not. Test-driven approach. We talked about this in XP, where I have some sort of test that I run, some sort of an acceptance test. And it could be an acceptance test. It could be behavior driven. Hey, here's an iPhone. Do you know how to work it? There's tests I do to make sure that my product can be used by the average person on the street. You don't want it so technical that I got to go through 3 days of training to use my iPhone. I should be able to pick it up and use it without any training. Factors to consider when determining success in this business world are the project costs, obviously, because I want to determine, is the cost worth the effort, worth the duration, worth the expense? Change requests may change things. Number of defects. We talked about quality a couple days ago where we talked about the cost of quality. If I put a lot of money into cost, I'm expecting the number of defects to go down. So I'm looking at these metrics to determine, am I succeeding or failing? How will I measure it? In a predictive approach, I'm looking at the entire project solution, and I'm usually testing it at the end. I don't know if I agree with that, but adaptive, you're usually testing it incrementally. I don't know. Even in predictive, I got a lot of quality checks before I get to the end. So I don't know if I agree with
you
that
don't wait to see how the
Yeah.
electrical was done when
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
are moving into the house.
Correct. That's absolutely correct. So I don't know if I agree with that. I think maybe what they're trying to say is in predictive, I'm checking my solution, and there's only one solution. If I turn on the light switch, the light should come on. That's it. Okay. In adaptive, I may say, if this solution doesn't work, is there a better way of doing it? Because I'm always constantly trying to change how I do things. So maybe if I throw the light switch, bad example, because I'm trying to compare a predictive and an agile by using a light switch. But even in agile, if I throw the switch on and the light don't come on, the agile folks may say, well, is there a better way to turn the light on than flicking the switch? Maybe I have something on my iPhone that I hit and the light comes on, and then I don't even need a light switch anymore. Okay. In the predictive, yeah, a clapper or something like that. In the predictive world, it's, hey, the light switch didn't come on. Are the wires connected? Why isn't this thing working? I don't know. That may be a bad example, but I think that's what they're saying. The predictive, there's one solution and it's got to work. In an agile, hey, this solution didn't work, so is there a better way to do it? Maybe there's another solution. And that's that iterative approach where I keep going around and around in Agile. Okay. Let's take how are we doing? I'll tell you my slide count right now. I have another 31 slides to go.
Oh, okay.
And half of those are questions for you that we're going to talk about. So we're almost done here. Okay.
Okay. Want to take 10 and then just knock them out?
Yeah. And then the only other thing I want to cover in this course after I'm done with the slides is I want to go back to the Agile 6th edition, not Agile, the PMBOK 6th edition. Okay. And we've been covering part 1 of the 6th edition. There's a part 2 and a part 3 in that book. And I want to show you what they are. What they are is redundancy. And that's what I want to show you, the redundancy, the gross redundancy in that book. Okay. Because I don't want you to say, well, this book's 900 pages and we only talked about the first 300, which is true. That's all we have talked about. But the other 600 are redundancy. Okay,
Sounds good to me.
let's take, we're a little past the 10, let's come back at 5 minutes past the hour and we'll keep going.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dave.
All right, thank you. All right, let's keep going here. Regardless of the approach, early evaluation is the goal, obviously. Who's going to conduct the evaluation? Business analysis or somebody playing the role? Requirements, traceability, testing. Okay. Validation, process of ensuring that all requirements are accurately reflected. Verification, the process of reviewing the requirements for errors in quality. So a slight definition difference there between the word validation and verification. Types of verification. Accepting the solution. And this is what we talked about again, business analysis, the needs, the requirements, traceability, solution evaluation. Again, I think what that whole section or this whole afternoon of training was very similar to what we talked about before, except the only changes I was talking about business requirements, vice product requirements. That's what I got out of those slides there. A lot of duplication of terminology too. Questions? Thoughts?
No. I mean, it was all pretty similar, except for just the, the lens you were viewing it through, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What do you think of this question?
All right. Question time.
I think we had this one, didn't we?
Something similar. Yeah, it's B.
It is.
A legal requirement is external enterprise and environmental factor.
Correct. This is another page 25 question.
I know I'm checking I'm
Yeah.
sneaking over there.
You know, I always tell students if you are going to take the exam, and I don't care if it's project management exam or the CAPM, I did it myself when I took it 12 years ago. I memorized page 25.
I feel like you have to.
Yeah, for just such a reason. Now, again, you may say, well, I know this. Yeah, you know this on question number 3. But what if this was 150? This was 149, because you're going to have 150 questions. Your head may be spinning at that point, and you may forget the things. So when you come into the exam, the first thing they do is give you a couple sheets of paper and a couple pencils, and that's all you get. And first thing I did as soon as I sat down is I just put that entire table down on the sheet of paper just to make sure my brain didn't get confused.
Yeah, it's A.
It is A, yes, because you remember that integration section across the top, those are in there.
That's what I thought, but I didn't want to
Yeah.
screw up again. That's bottom up.
Yeah, correct.
D. It's either C or D. It's got to be
Again,
D, right?
let me read it. I'm trying to improve the skills related to expertise in the industry and organizational knowledge. So it would
So
be
it's D.
C.
Oh.
C. Yeah, it's C. And the reason it's C and not D is because D is made up. Remember that talent triangle? There were only 3 sides to it. There was the leadership side, which they now call the power side. That's dealing with human beings, conflict resolution, coaching, training, stuff like that. Technical project management is the mechanics of project management, building a schedule, building a budget. And that's what they're talking about, expertise in the industry. The industry we're talking about right now is project management. And then the third side of the triangle is the first one, strategic and business management skills, which they now call business acumen. That's what we've been covering all day today.
Okay.
36.
C.
The statement of work will not have anything to do with the budget. Remember, the statement of work is a narrative description written by the customer. Customer may not even have anything in there about price.
Oh, I had that because the business case was in there.
Yeah. But even the business case may not help you. It may help you with the budget. But all I'm focusing on
So
right
B?
now is, yeah, it's B. All I'm focusing on is the budget itself right now, because that's the question. So the basis of estimates, that's how did I get those cost estimates, which is the next one. The schedule is going to affect my budget if you want me to do it fast or slow. And then risk, is this work very risky? That may affect my budget. 37. So the clue here is agile. They gave you a clue there, agile.
B.
Not true. I mean, I can still aggregate the costs. I mean, I'm going to know the costs after each sprint. I'll know the labor costs, how much they worked, and I'll know any material costs. I can aggregate those. I can roll them up, add them up.
Is it A?
It's A.
We didn't really talk about lightweight estimation method, so I wasn't.
Light. I don't like that word lightweight. Lightweight means rough order of magnitude estimate is probably a better way of saying it, or a educated guess estimate, where I'm not going to put a
Back
lot
of the napkin stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, a rough order of magnitude is probably the best way of saying it. A lightweight is not a project management term. It's a poor term. all it means is, I still need to keep my eye on the ball for cost estimate in Agile, but I'm not going to estimate down to the level that Predictive does, which is right to
Oh,
the
okay.
but I'm going to have an idea of how much this stuff costs, roughly.
That's fair.
But then they even say in the second half of the answer that can be used as changes arise. And that's why Agile says don't put a lot of time into getting a very detailed estimate, because tomorrow you may get a change. And now you wasted all that time putting that estimate together. So give a rough idea of the estimate, but you're probably going to get a change tomorrow, which may change the whole thing. Anyway, and that's Agile's philosophy, is not to put so much time into it. But Agile estimates difficulty. Remember that. They do estimate difficulty, which is how and the way the unit of measurement is what? What's the unit of measurement of difficulty?
How many iterations?
Nope.
Or
When I do planning poker, what am I estimating?
oh,
I look at each
yeah, what do they call? I
story.
forget what they're called though. Like where is it story hours?
Story points.
Story points.
Points. Yeah. So that's my unit of measurement, is story points. Okay, how about 38?
Modifications process. Hey. Or it's not evaluating it, it needs to ensure.
Yeah. That's not
So
necessarily.
C
No, they had B,
or B?
Bravo. Yeah. Ensure the information needs of the project and the stakeholders are met. Again, monitor, the word monitor means checking my work. So I'm checking my work. Is my communication plan working? Am I passing the right information about my project to the right stakeholders so they know what's going on? And each
And that's why I chose A
different.
originally, because I read that as, am I doing what I said I was going to do?
And I think that A is a good answer, but the only reason I'm not crazy about it is it's taken the communication management plan and just saying, am I executing it letter of law? Am I following it letter by letter? And that's a good thing if I am, but they want to take it one step further. Is
it effective or not?
Is it effective? Exactly. You may be following the plan by the letter, but is your plan any good? If your plan is poor, that you're not succeeding here.
Okay.
I think that's why B was chosen over A. How about 39? It's another page 25 question.
C?
It is C. I'll tell you right now, because I teach PMP exam prep frequently. I rarely teach CMPM. I teach it maybe 3 times a year, where I teach CMPM about once a month. This question would never be on a PMP exam. It's too direct. And that's why I'm glad I showed you some of those PMP exam questions. They were scenario based, where I tell a little story. I'm the project manager and I have a worker who's trying to do this, and he's asking me how to do a change request. What document would I show him to ensure he knows how to do the change process? It's a story. They would never ask you a question this direct. This is too in your face. But I think out of the CAPM, which is a predecessor, is they're trying to get you familiar with page 25, familiar with the processes before they ask you to extrapolate into the theories and things like that. That's my guess. They would tell a story here. You know, they may very well ask you on the PMP exam, what are the processes? But I think they would say something like,
you have to
or
manage
they
the
would
project scope.
I think they would tell you that you've completed your scope. And well, I'll give you a question they would give you. You completed your project ahead of schedule and under budget. Your team is celebrating this highly successful project. You get called up to the president's office, and the president tells you your project was an absolute failure. How could this have happened? And then they give you 4 different answers. And the correct answer was you failed to collect requirements from the president. So in the president's eyes, nobody ever came up to him and said, hey, what requirements do you have for this project? And he had some. You did the project, you did not satisfy his requirements. So in his eyes, and he's the guy at the top of the business, this project didn't do what I wanted it to do. So it's a failure. I don't care if they accomplished 20 other requirements. It didn't do what I wanted. Failure. So that was how they asked a question similar to this, I think.
Man, that'd be a rough day in the office.
Yeah. Yep. Well, you would hope. I mean, again, these questions are giving you scenarios that are at the extreme level. You would say, well, you know, did the guy just sit in his office and watch the plane crash?
Exactly.
Or at any time did he come out and say, hey, you're not doing X and Y, and I want X and Y done? You know, so again, there's some artificiality, these questions too, from the real world. How about this one?
Okay. A.
Hey, it is A. 41. We did this. I think I might have repeated some of these. Let me, how about this one? This looks like a new one.
That's analogous. C.
It is. Good. A lot of page 25 questions. Again, this is definitely CAPM questions here.
All right, so plan quality management is going to be A for the inputs, because your project management plan is going to be an output, right?
Inputs for the output is going to be that quality management plan. Correct. So what inputs do I need to gather before I can start writing that plan? What do I want? Quality metrics. Those are the metrics I need to achieve.
Oh, so C?
It's C. The project management plans, others, you know, there's 18 of them, you know, so
budget. Yeah, during the
Yeah.
plan quality management, you're going to be, one of the outputs is going to be quality metrics.
That's correct. But others may affect me, such as the scope, the requirements management plan. They may impact me. Project documents, some of those may impact me. And the most important thing in C is that organizational process assets. Those are things the company already has. That's the way they want you to write this management plan. So I definitely want that. I'm not starting with a blank sheet of paper. I'm going to get a template or something from the company. Now, I'll tell you, in the real world, in quality, we had a quality department. So I'll tell you right now, I never wrote one of these. It was literally handed to me. I punched 3 holes in it and stuck it into my project management plan. Because the project manager, I'm not deciding how quality is going to be done. That's done by the company. 44.
Communication skills.
Yeah, communicate. This is a good question, which initially looks complicated, but quite frankly, it's not. How should I evaluate the politics? And again, the word politics means how the company works. It doesn't mean Republicans and Democrats. And the power structure. Who pulls the strings here? Who can authorize an overnight shipment? Who can do these things? Ask. Communicate. 45. Do you remember this formula? Triangular distribution technique. Very fancy name there.
Let's see here.
I mean, you don't have to do the math. Tell me the formula and I'll do the math for you.
Well, it would. Yeah, so triangular distribution would be the most likely would have a weight of 1. Or I'm sorry, would have the weight of 3. Pessimistic would have a weight of 1. Optimistic would have a weight of 1.
That's a PERT or a beta method.
Okay. So is it just add
just-
the 3 together and divide it?
Correct. It's triangular.
It's just your
3
average.
is just a good old-fashioned average. So think of triangular as another name for this that you saw in the slides was a 3-point estimate. 3-point estimate, which is an average. So it's going to add up to 45. I'm going to divide by 3. So the answer is bravo, 15. You know, again, a fancy name, triangular distribution technique. It's an average. 46.
A.
It is A. I'm surprised you got that. That is
Because the
excellent.
change request is going to
Yeah.
be something between us and whoever the product owner is. But the procurement
Oh.
management plan is going to be mainly like, I don't care how you do it, just like that's up to you. Figure out how you're going to get the stuff done.
But the analysis is in the word of agreement. Whenever you see the word agreement, it's talking about the contract. So this is a contract I've signed with maybe a vendor. So what component would you want in a contract you signed with a vendor or the contract you signed with the customer? Well, I would want to have something in there of what do we do if we want to change this contract? How do we change the contract? There should be a way of doing it, and it should be explained in the contract. If you need to change this, both parties need to get together, discuss the impact, make a determination of whether both parties will have to approve the change, blah, blah, blah. But there should be some way of doing it. Risk template. I'm not going to have a template in a contract for risk. The lesson learned register. How could that possibly be in there? I mean, that's not going to be in there. And then the procurement management plan is going to tell me how to create an agreement. It's not going to be in the agreement. You know, it's going to tell me how. What contract? Are we going to use cost plus? Are we going to use fixed price? Are we going to use time and material? How do we negotiate it? How do I select the winner? You know, again, the word management plan means how-to guide. So that's not going to be in my contract. Good. That was a good one. 47.
I'd say B.
So at the organizational level, my influence at the organizational level, I can influence
Oh.
suppliers and other contractors.
Well, that's not really organizational level.
Yeah.
A.
Yeah. At the organizational level, I really can, because they said organizational level, and that was the clue in the question. I mean, B is not wrong. I can influence suppliers and other contractors, but they're not at the organizational level. The only people at the organizational level from all of these options is A, other project managers who work at my company. Okay. The other ones, I would argue, they're all correct, but not at the organizational level. 48.
B.
B, another page 25 question. 49.
C.
So I'm only going to modify my schedule once. I'm only going to conduct procurements once. See the question, example of processes that may be used once or at specific points in the project's life cycle. I may be making changes to my schedule anytime. I may be conducting procurements anytime during the life cycle.
Oh, that's fair. Then B.
I may be defining activities anytime. I may be
Used
acquiring
once.
resources anytime.
I'm tired too, Dave.
Yeah. The answer they have is A. Yeah. I usually only write the project charter once because that defines what I'm going to do. I could change it, but it's rare. And closing, I'm only doing that once. Or if I'm closing a phase, I'm doing it at predefined points, the end of each phase. And the last question I have is this one. Another page 25 question. A lot of page 25 questions.
B. Or no, A.
It's A. So after defining activities, and they even tell you in schedule management. So I know I'm in schedule management. So I've defined the activities. Next thing I'm going to do is sequence them and then estimate duration. So it is A. So that's good. And that is the end of my slides. Any questions on my slides? I only want to cover one more topic.
No.
Let me
I'm excited on getting into the bank of questions. I think that's where I learned I like refine the nuances in my head.
Yeah, you should get that tomorrow. We'll wait till tomorrow to give that to you. And it may be Monday because tomorrow, I mean, I don't know what time they knock off from work, but
oh, no problem. I'm not in a rush.
Yeah. So check with them.
Dave, I signed myself up for this thing Monday. No, I'm just kidding.
Some people do say that.
I've got my exam on.
Some people do say that. and that is and that leads me directly into the next conversation there. Because usually once I'm done with my my slides, the course, the students ask, well, where do I go from here? And that's what I'm going to talk about now. You know, okay. You've already mentioned one where getting those questions and then doing them. And I don't care if you're taking the CAPM exam or the PMP exam, I would recommend doing about 1,000 questions so you can start to see the methodology, the questions, the format, the structure of the questions. And also when you get their database from this company, it's only one database. So, and it's not going to say CAPM, PMP. It's just going to say project management questions. So, but that's okay because it's the same material. And I told you, I think at the very beginning, what we covered is pretty much the same thing. They left off things like conflict. They left off some leadership things, but I tried to plug those in. But, you know, there may be some things that don't satisfy PMP from this training, but it would be a handful of items. But do the questions, and that'll help you as well. And I would do 1,000 and not all at once, you know, 10 here, 5 there, just as you're sitting around with nothing to do. And, you know, one of the questions I usually get is, what is the grade of passing on either one of these exams? I don't know, and they will not tell you, okay? It's either pass or fail, right? And they give you a grade for each section, leadership, people, and business, and you have to pass them all. Now in CAPM, they only give you 1 grade. But again, I don't know what the passing grade is. Out of the 150 questions, how many do you got to get right? They won't tell. However, a bunch of companies have done their own analysis that PMI does not endorse, and they believe a passing grade is somewhere in the 70s.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I always tell students to do questions until you're getting about 80% of them correct, because that gives you a little buffer. So once you're getting about 80% correct, you're probably ready. Okay. And the other thing I tell them to do is you need to go back and look at this manual. In your case, it's the 6th edition of the PMBOK. And we've been going through this. You know, we've been going through all the chapters of the PMBOK. I mean, this is resource management. And I showed you how every one of these chapters is laid out the same way. You know, here's a process, estimate activity resources. They define it, tools and techniques, inputs, outputs, and then they define each one. Input. What is a resource management plan? Well, there it is. What is a scope baseline? Well, there it is. And I tell you, they've defined these multiple times. Enterprise environmental factors. This is probably the 30th time it's been defined. Okay. But that's what they do, tools and techniques and outputs. So we keep going through this. This is part 1 of the PMBOK. And I keep going. There's chapter 9. There's chapter 10, communications. You know, now that you got me flipping through this thing now. Especially communications here. Let me just show you one thing real quick, because you got me thinking PMP now. So here's chapter 10, communications. We talked about sending, you know, it defines everything. So this is a really nice review of all the things we covered. Just give me 1 second.
So you think after some studying and questions, I might be able to just go straight to PMP?
Yeah, I'll show you another study guide that'll help as well, if you want to
Awesome.
study here. Man, oh man, I can't find it. You know, you saw a question that talked about communication channels, and we never covered that. Communication channels are channels of communication that you may have. If it's just the 2 of us, we have 1 channel of communication. I talk to you, you talk to me. It's 1 line. Okay. If there's 3 of us, I could talk to the 3rd person. I could talk to you. I could talk to all 3 of us. You could talk to that 3rd person. Now there's more channels of communication. If there's 80 people on this team, imagine the number of channels. Each one talks to another. You know, it gets big. But there's a formula for calculating it. And the formula you want to write down is N times N minus 1 divided by 2. That's the formula for communication channels.
And
And
so if it's 80,
it would
it'd
be 80
times 79,
divided by 2
and then divide that by 2, and that's the amount of communication channels.
channels. Yeah. And what
Okay, that's easy enough.
the reason they tell you that is they're trying to show you how communications can get messed up. Because again, between the two of us, our communications have been very good. And that's one of the advantage, and that's why we're so far ahead, is because I'm only talking to you. If there were more people on this in this Zoom room, we would go slower because someone else would have a question.
Right.
Someone else would need an explanation, and now we're slowing down. I have more people I need to talk to. I got more communications I need to do. That's what they mean by that. Anyway, going back to this book, there's chapter 11, chapter 12, and finally chapter 13 is stakeholder management. Okay, which is that last knowledge area on page 25. So as I finish chapter 13, it looks like I'm done with this book. Okay, here I come. I'm finishing chapter 13 here. The end of chapter 13, which I should get to one of these days. I come to references just like you would see in any book. I keep turning the pages and I come to something called part 2. What could possibly be in part 2? Okay, so I start paging. I will tell you in part 2 is the exact same information that was in part 1. It's just given to you in a different format. Here's chapter 1. Remember I told you chapters 1, 2, and 3 was just general terminology? Well, that's true for part 2. But then I get to, it's all in chapter 1 now, all this general terminology. There's page 25 again, except now they call it page 556. It's identical. Okay, there's EEF and OPA. We talked about those. Artifacts. There's the list of project management plans and documents. We called this page 89 in part 1. Here it is again. It's identical. Then I get to chapter 2 and they talk about the initiating process group. They give you the processes there. It's only 2. Then I get to chapter 3. So what part 2 does is give you the exact same information, but they're giving it to you
in process groups instead of the knowledge areas?
Exactly. Yeah, they're giving it to you vertically by process group. In part 1, they gave it to you horizontally by knowledge areas. It's the same information. And so you decide which way you like it better. Do you like it by process group or do you like it by knowledge area? Now, I'll tell you.
By process group is the way that a project's going to go, though.
Correct. And I'll tell you another thing. In PMBOK 7th edition, it's by process group. So when you look at the 7th,
which is why it's so much smaller.
Yeah. So in the 7th edition, or even in that process groups book that I showed you earlier, they eliminated part 1 of the PMBOK. They go to part 2. They give you the same information because, quite frankly, the information has not changed, but they give it to you by process group.
Gotcha.
And they probably do it for the reason you just said, because that's how you do a project. That's probably why they took that approach, I guess. They didn't say.
Especially for a reference document, I can see why they would do that.
Yeah. And so there's chapter 2 is planning, and we know that planning is crazy long. And then chapter 4 gives me executing. And then chapter 5 will give me monitoring, controlling, and chapter 6 will give me closing. Okay, so they're all here, just given to you in a different format, that's all. And I think you may be right, that's probably there. So here's chapter 6, closing. We know there's only one process in chapter 6. I keep paging, and wouldn't you know it, I run into a part 3. Okay. I mean, this book will never end. So now I'm in part 3, appendices, glossaries, and index. So what could possibly be in this? Well, there's some good stuff and some not so good stuff. Appendix 1, you want to skip. These are the changes from PMBOK 5th edition to the 6th edition. You don't care what the 5th edition looked like. 6th edition is starting to go away pretty soon too. Right now, it's only electronic. You can't get it in print anymore. But you'll skip section 1 because you don't care. You don't care what the changes were. And then I get to appendix 2. These are the people who wrote this book. Nobody cares about appendix 2 except these people when they look it up and can see their name in print in the book. These are all the people who wrote this thing. Look at all these people. We don't care. So I'm going to page through appendix 6. And then I get to appendix 3. Now it starts to get a little interesting. Appendix 3, when I was going through the sections of part 1, do you remember how there were trends and emerging practices, agile, tailoring, those sections up front?
Mm-hmm.
This is the same information, except they're giving it to you in one appendix. This appendix is talking about Agile. So they explain Agile. And then they talk about, what is Agile, what is iterative, incremental. Then they talk about each process group. There's adaptive environment. We know adaptive means Agile. The initiating process group. How does Agile play in initiating? How does Agile play in planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing? You have to remember when the 6th edition was written, the Agile Practice Guide did not exist. So I think when they wrote the 6th edition, they said, hey, we need to say something about Agile. So in each knowledge area, they put a paragraph in Agile. Now in this section, they put a paragraph or 2 about each process group concerning Agile. Now, this information is probably very, very basic because later on, they then went ahead and wrote the Agile Practice Guide, which goes into more detail. But this is some good information, very basic, but it's, we're only talking, about 3-4 pages. It's a quick read. And then I go into Appendix 4. Now, what Appendix 4 did was, you remember those key concepts? They took all of them and cut and pasted them here. So here's the key concepts for project integration: scope, schedule, cost. You do not need to read Appendix 4 because all of this is in Part 1. Or if you don't want to do Part 1, here it all is in one appendix. It is word for word the same information. It's just organized a little nicer. I can read it all in, 5-6 pieces of paper. Tailoring, same thing. There was a little section on tailoring. They did the exact same thing. They copied every one of those sections and put it all in one appendix, just for ease of your reading, I think is the only reason I can think of. Appendix 6 gets interesting again, too. We've talked about a lot of tools and techniques this week.
Yeah, we have.
Here they all are.
Oh,
Every
nice.
single one of them. Now,
And where
what
to
I
find
like
them.
and where to find them. So what I like about this, I think this is a nice study guide. You just run down it. Cost of quality, and ask yourself, do I know what that means? If the answer is yes, move on to the next one. If the answer is no, it's in chapter 7 of part 1, paragraph 2, or section 2. It's also in chapter 8, section 1. So I would use this for study and just running down the terminology and just simply asking yourself, do I know what these terms mean? And if you do, great, move on. If you don't, look them up, okay? There's a lot of tools and techniques, as you can see, as I'm paging through this. Then I move on to a glossary, which is nice. And what might be even more important is acronyms. On the exam, they won't say estimate at completion. they're going to say EAC, and they expect you to know what the acronym means. Here's all the acronyms. Once again, run down the acronyms. If you know what they mean, great. If you don't, they're broken out right next to it. And then the last section is definitions, another great study document. Every term we used all week is here, and terms we didn't use, okay? All alphabetical order. Once again, just run down these pages. If you know what the term means, move on. If you don't, they give you a one-sentence definition next to it. And there's a lot of terminology in project management. And here it all is. So this is a nice little study guide for the exam, just to make sure you know all the terminology. Or if you forget something, you can always look it up here to remember what it was. And then finally, I get to the end of these terminology section, and I get to an index, you know, just like you would have in any reference manual. If you wanted to look something up, you can look it up back here, and I'll tell you what page number it's on. So an index is what you would expect. And then I keep paging through this electronic copy of the PMBOK, and eventually the PMBOK ends. Pasted directly to the back of it is the Agile Practice Guide. This is an excellent book on Agile because it's a primer. It's a basic, okay? It's not going to make you an Agile expert, but it'll give you enough information for the CAPM exam or the PMP exam. And this is where all that Agile discussion that we had all week came out of. You know, talks about Agile learning. Hang on. Definable work versus highly uncertain. We saw a video on that. Agile Manifesto. There's those 4. The 12 principles of Agile. And then it slowly gets you deeper and deeper in. We saw that picture. Lean is the parent of all these. Okay. And then it starts getting into this. And then eventually it'll talk to you about Scrum, Kanban, XP. It'll talk to you about life cycles, everything we talked about. So it's a very easy read. It's only about 180 pages. I definitely browse it. Okay. Any questions on the textbook?
No.
Because it is big. And that's why I also wanted to show you how you got to 976 pages.
It is big, but I mean, to your point, you know, half of it is just the same information told a different way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're just like, you know, if I had the physical book, I'd be like, oh man, this is daunting. But
Yeah.
you know, the typeface is reasonable. It's not super tight.
And
You've
it's
got tons of
organized.
pictures and diagrams.
It's organized very well in the
Yeah.
fact that it breaks it down. It starts as an overall definition, tells you the processes, then the inputs, tools and techniques and outputs, and defines them every single time.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
yeah.
presented in a consistent way. So
Yeah.
you get used to how that is, and it makes it
Yeah.
easier to study and you know, kind of lay it in your, you know, commit it to memory.
Yeah, and it is a textbook. I mean, it is a reference manual. It's not a book like you would read off a shelf. It's a reference manual.
Yeah, it's
So
not vacation reading.
No, some people have a hard, yeah, it's not. And some people have a hard time with, you know, reading a reference manual because it doesn't flow. But I think this does flow. I really do.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, I think it's different, you know, if you've worked in the industry or an industry that uses the same types of things, or if you're coming straight out of left field. Like if I was working retail and I jumped into a project management guide, I'm not going to have any points of reference to, you know, contextualize it.
Right.
So.
Right. You were asking about other things to, you know, again, this course was designed for CAPM. So you have everything you need for CAPM if that's the exam you want to take. Okay.
Okay.
But if you're interested in PMP, do I have to take another course on PMP exam prep? I would say no, because you've received probably 80% of the information this week. Okay. A good source for more PMP information is a woman called Rita Mulhaney. Okay. She writes she's long since dead, but she created a industry in PMP. She writes very well. She writes very well, and she's been doing this. She writes this book. Now she'll sell courses. You know, she's an industry and not her. You know, some company bought her information and they're an industry. Okay. And so they'll sell you everything and its brother. But the one book that she writes, and you may get it cheaper in a college or someplace, this PMP exam prep book for 2023 is an excellent book. I've used it. I've read it. It's, you know, if you ask me what's the best exam prep book on the market, I would go with Rita Mulhaney. I think she does the best job out of all this. So I put that plug there.
Look at that. Man, buying it new and buying it used is a tremendous difference.
Absolutely. And I could see why used is a market.
352.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I could see why used would be a selling point, because you only use that thing once. You know, you study it, you take the exam, and you'll never open that book ever again, because it's not a reference manual. She takes the PMP, the PMBOK, and she translates it into a book form. So you can read it on the beach, like you were saying. And she gives a lot of questions too. So she'll give you even more questions. So again, a good source of information if you do want to take the step to PMP. Again, this course was designed for CAPM, and I think it did an excellent job covering CAPM. Remember, this course was written by PMI. So this was PMI's course. So, and that is all I have. Again, we went through much quicker, but you know, I told you I taught CAPM about 2 or 3 times a year. Normally this course is 3 days long. I was a little surprised when I heard that they were telling me to do 4 days, because I say, you know, PMP exam prep is 4 days, but CAPM is normally 3 days because it is lesser material. And I was a little surprised that we were taking 4, because I've never taught this course 4 days. It is a new course. It's only a couple months old. So I thought maybe they added more, and they did, but not a day's worth. And the 2 of us teaching to 1 person is a joy. And because it goes much quicker. Okay. Try teaching to 30. You're bouncing all over the place. And you know, some of the students get frustrated because we're talking about earned value management for 5 hours, and nobody understands this concept called plan value. So you're just going on and on and on and on. We didn't do that. You seem to pick up the material very quickly, and you seem to get the answers, you know, very quickly as well. So I can tell that you have been exposed to project management.
Well, you're a good teacher, Dave.
Some students I get have never heard the word project management before. So
okay.
Try that.
This is like, why are you here?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know. I know. So there you go.
Well, awesome, Dave. I really appreciate you taking the time. And I think you're a great teacher, and the way that you present the information is great. So yeah, I mean, it was great to be able to knock this thing out in 3 days. I'm sure my coworkers will appreciate it.
Okay.
I think I've got a lot of stuff that I can bring back to the office, and certainly put some thoughts in my head as to, hey, do I, you know, there's no requirement at my company to actually take the CAPM or the PMP.
Yeah.
But, you know, based on, you know, how how this has gone, certainly puts it in my head like, hey, what's the downside
Yeah,
to getting the certification, parlaying that into a raise or, just betterment for my career. So
yeah, yeah.
I appreciate that as well, sir.
Okay. And you got my email address, obviously, because I've been sending you questions. So if you ever think of another question, 6 months from now, 3 months from now, just pop me an email.
Oh, I appreciate
Okay.
that. Thanks so
Yeah.
much.
So you got my email address if you ever have another question in the future. And make sure you get that data bank or that question bank on Monday. If you don't, and you're having problems getting it from the company, pop me an email as well. Because I can,
Okay.
you can approach them on one side and I can approach them on the other side to get them to open up that data bank.
I appreciate that. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll let you know. And if I do end up taking the thing, I'll let you know how I do.
Okay. Good luck. All
All right. Thanks, Dave.
right. Thank you. Take care.
Have a good one.
Okay. Bye-bye.